a complete exploration of Silverhawks, 1986 TV series. There is something truly magical about 80s cartoon shows, and today we are going to talk about one of the underrated gems from this era that followed the route laid by its super popular predecessor, Thundercats. Developed by Rankin Bass Productions and distributed by Lorimar Telepictures in 1986, Silverhawks is a story of space cops that spans only one season but has 65 episodes of pure action and space expedition. The show also has a comic series published by Marvel Comics under the name Star Comics. So, without wasting any more time, let's find out what transpired in a galaxy not so far away. The origin story. Before we embark on the journey, the narrator makes the audience familiar with the Silverhawks and their arch-rivals, Monstar and his alien mob. Silverhawks are humans who have opted for metallic bodies to defend the galaxy from mob bosses like Monstar. The episode starts in the year 2839 when Commander Stargazer, working aboard the Hawk Haven space station in the galaxy of Limbo, informs the authorities on Earth about Monstar escaping from the prison in Penal Planet 10. A little flashback shows how a starburst from a nearby moonstar helped Monstar to power up. Although the prison guards tried to close the shutter, a little gap was left, which was enough for Monstar to consume the red light. As he breaks away from the cell, he sheds the ape-like fur to transform into a deadly, armoured and robotic-looking monster. Monstar soon comes across his longtime pet, a giant space squid named Skyrunner. The squid has grown wild without its master, so it attacks Monstar. But the crime lord uses the power of Lightstar from his eye patch to subdue the wild alien and encase it in armor. While this might be one of the most underrated and praiseworthy cartoons, the dialogues and their delivery are at their wackiest best. Back at the headquarters, Commander Stargazer reminds the authorities on Earth about the danger that Monstar poses after releasing the other criminals. He gives a brief on the villains in Monstar's payroll, which includes the shapeshifter Molech Ular, the musical Melodia, the strong destroyer called Mumbo Jumbo, Weapon Master Hardware and Windamar with the tuning fork. On Earth, a human commander, General Rawlings, discusses the issue with an alien scientist, Professor Gemakine, as they go over the members of the Silverhawks. The first is Group Leader Jonathan Quick, former head of Federal Interplanetary Force 8, and now codenamed Quicksilver. Next up are the technical engineer twins Emily and Will Hart, now called Steelheart and Steelwill. From the planet of Mimes is an alien named Copper Kid, while the group will be supported by a pilot with cowboy attire known as Bluegrass. The spacecraft is called Mirage. Copper Kid is the only alien among the Silverhawks, and as such, he does not communicate in English, but uses calculator-like tones and whistles. As the scientist runs a few tests on the Silverhawks, he notices that the twins need their organic hearts replaced. So with Nurse Mabis's help, he replaces them with mechanical ones. The group is subjected to a simulation before being sent to the galaxy of Limbo, which they pass with flying colours. Even Mirage's stealth mode impresses the leaders, while the metallic wings and rocket power help the Silverhawks with their manoeuvres. Later, Bluegrass quizzes Copper Kid on the solar system and promises to give him flight lessons when they reach Hawk Haven. The episode ends in contemplation of what will happen once they are blasted off for Limbo.
Well, that's the end of that song.
Journey to Limbo. The episode starts right from when the Silverhawks arrive at Hawk Haven in the galaxy of Limbo. They are surprised to see that the widely futuristic space station has a typical American office for Commander Stargazer. After a quick introduction and exchange of pleasantries, the commander goes straight into business, showing how Monstar has taken refuge in the red, ominous-looking planet of Brimstar. On the planet, we see Monstar's ape-like appearance as he calls in his faithful servant Yes Man, a creature with snake-like features who seems overly devoted to his master. Yes Man informs Monstar about the Silverhawks' arrival in Hawk Haven, and so Monstar uses the light of the Moonstar in the transformation chamber to activate his powers. He also changes Skyrunner into an armoured vehicle and rallies his team of space miscreants to launch an attack on the Hawk Haven Command Center. Meanwhile, Tallyhawk finally makes its appearance. Commander Stargazer explains that it is a cybernetically enhanced Hawk that can act as a spy satellite. Stargazer hands the control band to Quicksilver so that he can command the bird. In this segment, Stargazer makes a reference to his friends in Chicago, who are visited in the Silverhawks comics issue number 6. As they talk, Monstar and his henchmen attack the command center. Quicksilver sends Tallyhawk to return the attack, but Commander Stargazer asks him to call back the bird. Colonel Bluegrass also shows off what his guitar hot licks can do as a musical weapon, which impresses Sergeant Steelheart. As Monstar's troop continuously attacks Hawk Haven, the Silverhawks head to Mirage and fight the villains. Quicksilver takes on the mob boss, and Tallyhawk gets injured while taking down Skyrunner. On the other hand, Yes Man helps Melodia strike Mirage with her musical synthesizer, but the fight levels up as Bluegrass not only takes Mirage to stealth mode, but also strikes back. The rock-off results in Bluegrass emerging victorious, and even the other Silverhawks are able to subdue all the villains. The show's concentration on disco music for the action sequence is definitely the one to look out for. Finally, Quicksilver creates a black smoke that engulfs Monstar as the Silverhawks launch a unified attack, forcing Monstar and his mob to retreat to Brimstar. Commander Stargazer reminds the group that this is just a temporary win and they must be vigilant to protect the universe from the evil mob. The episode ends with more lessons for Copper Kid with his instructor, Bluegrass. This is, however, a common theme as each episode ends with a similar educational segment.
You'll never win a laser duel against me, Silver.
The Planet Eater. A new danger is causing trouble to space travelers as a large ship called the Sky Chomper is feasting on every spaceship. When it attacks a cargo freighter, Commander Stargazer gets an alert and sends the Silverhawks into action. However, the Silverhawks are late as the Sky Chomper, driven by Hardware and Buzzsaw, devours the freighter and heads back to Brimstar. The Mirage follows Sky Chomper. On Brimstar, Monstar crowns himself as Planet Master as he orders Hardware and Buzzsaw to feed the ship's parts to the Planet Eater, the living crust of Brimstar with fire in its belly. Upon Monstar's orders, Windhammer also creates a galactic whirlwind, which disrupts Mirage's flight and forces it to retreat. At Hawk Haven, Stargazer discusses the problems with the Silverhawks when he notices that Copper Kid is absent. Stargazer gets angry at Copper Kid and grounds him, but the unpredictable Copper Kid takes a rocket sledge and heads toward Brimstar. However, he gets noticed by Monstar, who orders Windhammer to trap Copper Kid with the whirlwind. As Copper Kid's rocket crash lands on Brimstar, Buzzsaw confronts him. Now, the name Buzzsaw is pretty common in pop culture, as it is also the name of a robot in Transformers, and it is one of the antagonists in the 1987 movie Running Man, which features Arnold Schwarzenegger. Tallyhawk returns to Hawk Haven with images of Copper Kid caught in the whirlwind, and Stargazer sends the Silverhawks to rescue Kid. Meanwhile, Copper Kid takes control of Buzzsaw's cybernetics and sends him back, but Monstar sends Hardware after him, as well as a snag missile that catches Kid in a net and drops him down a pipe right into the villain's lair. As Monstar shows Kid the footage of the Planet Eater, Copper Kid slyly records it and sends it to the Silverhawks via Tallyhawk. The heroes learn Monstar's plan to use the Planet Eater to consume all planets and dominate space. As they race into action, Monstar orders another whirlwind and even the snag missile to defeat them, but nothing works. As a last resort, he orders Yes Man to operate the transformation chamber that helps Monstar power up, while Quicksilver again faces off with the Planet Master. Steelheart and Steelwill look for Copper Kid and set up a charge that will destroy the Planet Eater. Bluegrass also joins in the fun as he moves ahead in the hot seat and drops a musical number on Monstar, throwing him off the Skyrunner and right on top of Hardware and Buzzsaw. It appears Monstar is working with a bunch of idiots, as Yes Man releases Copper Kid into deep space, hoping he will die, and quite possibly unaware that Silverhawks can survive in space. Monstar becomes furious at losing his leverage, while the Bluegrass rescues Copper Kid in time. They watch the explosives in Brimstar blowing up and the Planet Eater going down for good. Save the Sun. A disgruntled Stargazer is on monitoring duty as a tanker arrives to refuel Limbo's giant artificial sun. But Monstar has plans to take over the sun and assert his dominance over Limbo. Melodia forces the light bulb-headed Professor Power to coordinate with the tanker as it docks behind the sun. Buzzsaw and Hardware soon make a move and hijack the tanker. But as Melodia gets busy with the celebrations, Professor Power escapes in a small shuttle pod and hitches a ride on a space taxi to travel to Hawk Haven. This is Seymour's first appearance with his space hack taxi. Hardware warns Melodia that Monstar would be mad at her for losing Professor Power, but they set up a charge to blow up the space anchors holding the artificial sun. Back in Hawk Haven, Professor Power informs Stargazer and Steelheart about his troubles. Stargazer doesn't waste any time sending the team of Silverhawks into the mission, but by now, the mob has started blowing off the anchors and taking the artificial sun with them. The Silverhawks pester their commander to get the interception point, who seems already tired of this mob business. The Silverhawks eventually find the hijackers, but Melodia's musical menace gives Mirage a difficult time. As Bluegrass carefully avoids the attacks, the others eject out of the spaceship and battle the villains. Copper Kid almost slides off the sides of the tankers, but Quicksilver saves him. The Steel Twins get rid of Buzzsaw, while Quicksilver and Copper Kid take down Hardware, the troll. An interesting fact is that Hardware is the only mob member to have his species named. Stargazer identifies him as a troll in the first issue of the Silverhawks comics. Another epic rock battle ensues between Bluegrass and Melodia, but Bluegrass's guitar gets knocked off. However, he ropes in Melodia with his lasso as she swears vengeance. After the artificial sun is reclaimed and restationed, Professor Power allows Copper Kid to do the honor of lighting it up.
The crystals! The crystals!
Stop Time Stopper. The latest evil mission has Molecular and Mumbo Jumbo traveling to the artificial half-planet Automata while Tallyhawk secretly spies on them. The criminals get a rude interruption from an arrogant and reckless young boy called Time Stopper, who stops the time for 1 limbo minute. Time Stopper throws Mumbo Jumbo out of the vehicle and hijacks it. Starting the time again, Time Stopper rides the vehicle so fast that even Molecular gets blown off. Molecular and Mumbo Jumbo get a ride on Seymour's space hack and travel back to Brimstar. Tallyhawk sends the report to Stargazer, who orders everyone to check for the miscreant boy in their universal criminal database. Steelheart finds him and informs him that Time Stopper is a 14-year-old boy with the ability to freeze time. However, he cannot use his powers in the dark. Time Stopper meets with Monstar upon invitation, and the mob boss offers to add him to the payroll if he helps steal a load of power crystals from the mines of Automata and then destroy the planet thereafter. Monstar wants to be the only source of the power crystals so that others in Limbo can come to him for power. Time Stopper agrees to the deal and takes the Roadstar along with Mumbo Jumbo and Molecular to Automata. Automata has only machines on the planet, and as the Roadstar enters its atmosphere, the Silverhawks and the planet's auto-defensive rockets follow them. The criminals still reach the inner mines, and Time Stopper freezes the Silverhawks. The criminals steal all the power crystals and set up explosives to ensure the frozen Silverhawks face an untimely demise. What's more, they also steal Mirage right under Bluegrass's nose. When time starts again, the Steel Twins modify the auto-defensive rockets, and the Silverhawks escape the planet before the mines blow up. Bluegrass also tails the villains as they pass through a rough area called the Light Year Limit. Tallyhawk arrives to help Bluegrass pass through the dangerous place and arrive at the Cine Star Dina on the planet of Fence, where the criminals try to sell the Mirage to the highest bidder. Bluegrass tries fighting for his beloved ride, but he is largely outnumbered among the scums and miscreants of Limbo. Thankfully, the others arrive at the same time, and Steelheart cuts the cord to connect Mirage with the Roadstar. This makes us wonder why Bluegrass didn't opt for the same, as the villains were inside the diner with nobody to guard the ship parked outside. The mob gets out of the diner and escapes in the Roadstar, while the Silverhawks follow them. Monstar keeps track of the events as he orders Yes Man to operate the transformation chamber. Monstar is a shapeshifter with a feline humanoid alien feature and a star-like eye patch. The red beams of the Moonstar transform him into a more muscular version, sans the hair and with metallic armor. The left eye patch also changes to a weapon that can fire the lights. Monstar confronts the Silverhawks, and as Quicksilver and Copper Kid engage Monstar, Tallyhawk takes down Mumbo Jumbo while the Steel Twins use black smoke to stop the Time Stopper from stopping time. The combined attack forces Monstar to retreat, and as the Silverhawks return to base with all the retrieved crystals, Stargazer must keep an eye on them until Automata is rebuilt. But something tells us Stargazer is not bothered at all.
This is the end of the line for you, Quicksilver!
Darkbird. Trouble brews for the Silverhawks as Dalare, the bank planet of Limbo, gets attacked by Quicksilver. Lord Cash of Dalare first allows Quicksilver free entry, but when the rogue Silverhawks attack, he reports the issue to Earth. It turns out that the person is Quicksilver's evil clone named Darkbird, who ties Lord Cash and waits for the mob to collect all the money from Limbo Galaxy. Stargazers call the Silverhawks and inform them of the news about the authorities wanting their disbandment. Bluegrass refuses to believe that Quicksilver will do such a thing, and he is proven right when Tallyhawk brings video evidence that Hardware created Darkbird under the orders of Monstar. The Steel Twins have also created a new gadget to net the villains, and they head out to catch the culprits before they wipe out all the money. Meanwhile, Hardware gets berated by Monstar for asking about payment to make the clone. As Hardware and Mumbo Jumbo sets off to collect the loot, they are intercepted by Mirage. However, Darkbird comes to their rescue and jams Steelwill's hand, which causes him to lose power. The Mirage also sustains some damage, and Quicksilver orders the gang to return to Hawk Haven for a fix-up while he and Tallyhawk confront the doppelganger. As Darkbird awaits his team members, Quicksilver and Tallyhawk fire into Dalare's defense system to get inside. On the other hand, Hardware returns to Brimstar with the news of the Silverhawks' attack, and Monstar transforms to get into the field himself. Back at Hawk Haven, the others have mended the damages and fly out to help Quicksilver, who has now breached into Dalare. As Quicksilver fights Darkbird, he uses the netball created by Steelheart to capture the doppelganger, but both get entwined. Initially, Darkbird is able to gain an advantage on Quicksilver, as the Silverhawk is made of part metal and part real, but Darkbird's lack of humanity becomes his weakness, as Quicksilver handcuffs Darkbird to take him to Penal Planet 10. The plan is thwarted when Monstar arrives in his Skyrunner. Although the theme song defines the Silverhawks as partly metal, partly real, they are cyborgs, humans, or humanoid aliens with mechanical body parts. All of them even have one hand and face in their organic form. Moving on, Quicksilver dodges Monstar's attack, and soon his teammates join in to throw Monstar off the Skyrunner. Bluegrass's musical notes further scare away Skyrunner, and even Monstar has to retreat, as he is largely outnumbered. He leaves after several threatening remarks, and the Silverhawks release Lord Cash, who apologizes for mistaking Darkbird for Quicksilver. With another battle won, the odds look quite in favor of the Silverhawks. The Back Room. It is now time to look into other criminal layovers in the galaxy of Limbo. The story begins with one of Commander Stargazer's agents reporting from Pokerface's Starship Casino beyond the light-year limit, which is out of jurisdiction for the Silverhawks. Before being deep-spaced, the agent informs Stargazer of a machine that can destroy the galaxy. Sometime later, Stargazer enters the casino disguised and meets with Pokerface. However, Stargazer is captured by Mumbo Jumbo, as the cloaked disguise does not fool Pokerface. They deep-space Stargazer, and his calls for help are intercepted by Mirage. Copper Kid zeroes on his location, and eventually, the Silverhawks rescue him and head back to the headquarters. Monstar appears at the casino in armoured form as the android gangster Pokerface takes Monstar to the back room. Pokerface shows his boss that he has built the ultimate destructive playing slot, where if 3 images of a planet appear together, it gets immediately destroyed. However, there is a little catch, as Pokerface mentions that the slot machine would cost Monstar 1 billion Limbo bucks for even a spin. As Monstar tries his hands at the slot machine, the sound and quake from a planet's destruction alert the Silverhawks, and Quicksilver identifies it as a supernova. This is a gross scientific mistake, as a supernova explosion occurs when a star dies, not a planet. Bluegrass volunteers to travel to the lawless planet and investigate, but he is not allowed to attack. Before he reaches, Bluegrass has a solo jamming session that sure fires us up. Monstar sends Hardware and others after Bluegrass, and as the hot seat gets damaged, Bluegrass has to return. Monstar delivers Poker Face with substantial gold as he tries playing multiple times. However, he gets more frustrated as Hawk Haven and other planets still survive. Back at Hawk Haven, Copper Kid suggests towing the entire casino to an area within the jurisdiction while we find Poker Face and Mumbo Jumbo recharging themselves before the fight. Although most mob members have superpowers, Poker Face is the only one who relies on his wits and owns a casino. The concept of mob controlling the casino is inspired by the real-world mafia. However, like many mob members, Poker Face and Mumbo Jumbo are androids and need charging with plugs. As the Silverhawks arrive, Mumbo Jumbo wakes up and attacks, but Copper Kid dodges the attacks. It also sets off the alarm, waking Poker Face, who calls Monstar for help. The Planet Master again transforms and arrives on time. As the Silverhawks are still unable to use guns on them, they use the black smoke to confuse Monstar. As the gas runs out for Steelheart, they must now work the hard way. Copper Kid has now entered the casino and wisely opens the casino's trapdoor and dumps the casino's gold coins on Monstar and his Skyrunner, while deep spacing the other mob members. The Silverhawks also manage to get the casino into their territory, allowing the Steel Twins to break the deadly machine apart.
Now's our chance.
Out of the way!
The threat of Drit. A different kind of threat looms over Limbo as Ambassador Drit of Triangulon and his commander arrive at the edge of the galaxy to sign a peace treaty for the first time. Commander Stargazer mentions that the Triangulons could prove a fearful adversary, so he orders Lieutenant Quicksilver to take Colonel Bluegrass and Tallyhawk to escort the ambassador. However, Monstar considers it the right opportunity to start an intergalactic war, allowing him to take over Limbo. He sends Molecular to abduct Ambassador Drit. Molecular is a shapeshifter who takes the form of an average Joe alien pilot as he appears in front of the Triangulon ship and asks Ambassador Drit to come aboard. Although it's foolish in hindsight, the ambassador goes alone and is surprised that only a single ant-like alien has come to escort him. Molecular soon reveals his true appearance and forces Ambassador Drit to his seat as he takes the spaceship towards Brimstar. Sometime later, the Silverhawks arrive to escort the ambassador to planet Bedlama, and the Triangulon commander is taken aback. Quicksilver goes to the Triangulon ship and realizes that the mob must have taken the ambassador. The Triangulon commander gives Quicksilver 8 hours to find their ambassador and threatens to blow up Hawk Haven otherwise. Tracking Ambassador Drit helps Quicksilver realize that the ambassador is currently in the light-year limit zone. As Molecular and Ambassador Drit reach Brimstar, Tallyhawk reports the same to Quicksilver. The Triangulon commander hears the news from Quicksilver, but again threatens Quicksilver of pointing lasers at the command center. Bluegrass takes Mirage to Brimstar, and Quicksilver, along with Tallyhawk, enters the planet. Bluegrass also starts playing hot licks to lure out Melodia so that they are distracted enough. Bluegrass has a sonic guitar, and he is apparently named after bluegrass music, a genre related to country music. Quicksilver infiltrates Monstar's castle, but is losing time in the labyrinth, so Tallyhawk helps him find the imprisoned ambassador. Quicksilver rescues Ambassador Drit and starts finding an escape route. Monstar watches it on the screen and goes to the transformation chamber. Molecular also transforms into Tallyhawk to lead Quicksilver in the wrong direction. Just as Monstar appears in his devilish form, Monstar uses the Light Star to attack, but Quicksilver uses Molecular as a shield and escapes with Ambassador Drit. Meanwhile, Bluegrass surprises Melodia and Hardware by putting Mirage in stealth mode and attacking them from behind. As real Tallyhawk helps Quicksilver and Drit out of the castle, Bluegrass picks them up. Quicksilver arrives in front of the Triangulon cruiser just before the commander is ready to blow off Hawk Haven. The commander stops the countdown, and Ambassador Drit returns to the cruiser. Drit shares his gratitude for the Silverhawks as the gang salutes him. While peace has prevailed, we are sure Monstar will find different ways to take over the ultimate power.
You'll pay for that!
Sky Shadow. Monstar is getting frustrated with his foiled plans, especially with Tallyhawk's constant surveillance of their every move, so he orders Hardware to create their version of a similar spybird. Hardware already has a plan in motion, as he has ordered the delivery of a Sky Shadow that he will enhance with cybernetic armor. Hardware plans to get Tallyhawk and replicate its control system into the Sky Shadow. The rival bird is, however, more like a small dragon with crab and bat-like features. Right on cue, Tallyhawk appears and takes a picture of the Sky Shadow being delivered. As the mob misses Tallyhawk, it sends the image to Hawk Haven. The Silverhawks were already aware of the arrival of a space freighter in Brimstar, so the image of Sky Shadow alerts them further as they head out to protect their beloved animal companion. The failed attempt enrages Monstar, who sends the mob to chase after and capture Tallyhawk. This leads to an outright battle between the Silverhawks and the mob, as Melodia emerges victorious. Melodia manages to cause turbulence for Mirage, allowing Windhammer to capture Tallyhawk with a space cyclone. As Bluegrass stabilizes Mirage, they realize that Tallyhawk has been captured. The Silverhawks follow the criminals to Brimstar, but Windhammer freezes Mirage and the Silverhawks in a blizzard. As Copper Kid and Bluegrass go out of commission, the rest land on Brimstar, while Monstar starts his usual transformation process. Quicksilver confronts Monstar, but the Lightstar attack from the villain hits Quicksilver's chest, putting him under Monstar's control. Monstar takes him to the chamber where Tallyhawk's powers are transferred to Sky Shadow. The Steel Twins also arrive on time, but Hardware closes the door on them. The twins break the door and the glass cages, enabling Sky Shadow and Tallyhawk to escape. However, Monstar also attacks the twins with the Lightstar. Thanks to the twins, the transfer is interrupted, and Tallyhawk has not become weaker than Sky Shadow. Yet Sky Shadow gets hold of Tallyhawk. The fraternal twins, Steelheart and Steelwill, communicate telepathically to overcome their static condition and use their laser power to bring around Quicksilver. They notify Bluegrass about the aerial brawl between the cybernetic birds, and Bluegrass shoves Sky Shadow off Tallyhawk. Tallyhawk finally takes the chance to put down Sky Shadow, and Hardware becomes distraught. It is probably a rare moment when Monstar doesn't rebuke Hardware and shows little compassion for Hardware, as he comments that they have plenty of time to get back. For now, the three Silverhawks escape from Brimstar along with Tallyhawk.
Toro, Toro!
Magnetic attraction. As almost all Silverhawks are on a mission to pulverize deadly asteroids heading toward Hawk Haven, it is now up to Steelheart to carry out a solo mission. Commander Stargazer informs her that Brigadier Brightlight has captured Pokerface and is holding him in Bedlama, so she must escort him to the penal planet. As Mirage is engaged in the asteroid mission, Stargazer employs Seymour's space hack to be the commute for Steelheart. Meanwhile, Monstar demands Hardware to make sure they get Pokerface back. Hardware reveals his latest invention, the Hardware Mach 2 Super Magnetizer, a magnetic belt worn by Mumbo Jumbo that can attract any metallic object. When Steelheart arrives at Bedlama and takes Pokerface and his laser cane into her custody, Hardware and Mumbo Jumbo also appear. They pull the cab to the ground with the magnetic belt, and Steelheart takes hold of the steering, but it crash lands, knocking out Pokerface. Seymour escapes while the villains pull at Steelheart with the magnetic belt. The Sergeant is, however, still capable of fighting the powerful magnetic pull, but only until Hardware switches the magnetization to overdrive. Back at Hawk Haven, Steelwill receives a telepathic distress signal from his sister and informs the same Stargazer, who calls Quicksilver to borrow Tallyhawk for surveillance. Tallyhawk shows the footage of Bedlama, and as Steelwill rushes to save his sister, Stargazer gives him a polarity reverser device. However, it doesn't make sense for Steelwill to jump off Hawk Haven and arrive at Bedlama without any commute when Steelheart faced the same problem just earlier and had to hire a space cab. This reminds us that Seymour's comic relief character is possibly inspired by Space Cabbie, a minor DC Comics series from the 1950s, and the main character was a space cab driver. Coming back to the present situation, Steelwill immediately reverses the polarity and rescues his sister. Mumbo Jumbo charges at him in retaliation, but Steelwill averts the attack, and the bull-like villain knocks on hard rock, shaking the ground and waking up Pokerface. Pokerface takes out his laser cane and shoots at the twins, forcing them to hide behind a hill. But as they fly downward, Hardware again charges at them with the magnetizer. As the Steel Twins still fight back, Seymour looks from behind a rock and wonders which group he should support. Seymour picks up the polarity reverser, but gets attacked by Pokerface, which makes him mad. So he uses the gun to save the Steel Twins. As Hardware and Mumbo Jumbo escape the planet, the twins take Pokerface into custody, but don't have a vehicle to escort him to the penal planet. Their question is answered when Mirage and Tallyhawk arrive, while the twins also assure Seymour about Stargazer paying for the cab's repairs.
Get him!
Gold Shield, mob members, Time Stopper and Buzzsaw attack Bedlama Armory security and steal a machine called Disintegrator. Brigadier Brightlight informs the Silverhawks about the robbery, and Quicksilver inspects the situation. The images in the scanner show the culprits, and Quicksilver realizes that Time Stopper stopped time to break into the vault. Brightlight further explains that the Disintegrator is a highly dangerous weapon that can disintegrate any object into its components, and Monstar obtaining the weapon would mean mass destruction. As expected, Time Stopper and Buzzsaw attack a space vehicle, moving gold bars to Dolare and stealing the gold. While the Silverhawks rally to handle the situation, Monstar prepares to destroy Hawk Haven for good. He also plans to use the Disintegrator to destroy Dolare and the artificial sun, changing the Silverhawks to silver scraps. Nice wordplay there. However, first, he must get a power-up. Although these scenes may feel repetitive, the animation by Japanese studio Pacific Animation Corporation has done a commendable job in designing the various aliens. While Monstar, Time Stopper and Buzzsaw are on their way to Hawk Haven, the Silverhawks try to find a weakness of the Disintegrator. The mob finds Seymour on their way and disintegrates his space hack for fun. Meanwhile, the Steel Twins notice that gold is impervious to the Disintegrator. As Hawk Haven has no gold, Commander Stargazer provides the team with his gold spare parts so that the twins can make a shield. Stargazer is also partly covered with gold armor, so he has the spare parts. Quicksilver borrows Copper Kid's space racer so that the gold shield can be fitted in front of it. Since the effect of the Disintegrator on any other metal is unknown, Stargazer stops Quicksilver from going, as he is partly made of silver. Stargazer voluntarily rides the space racer, which can withstand the mob's attack, but soon Stargazer is knocked off. Time Stopper still tries to break the space racer, but the gold shield causes the rays of the Disintegrator to refract and hit the Roadstar. Time Stopper is knocked off his seat as Buzzsaw and the Roadstar disintegrate. Time Stopper also hits Skyrunner, making Monstar fall and causing the armor on the squid to break up. The Silverhawks form a cluster, saving Stargazer. However, Copper Kid is too fast to break off as he goes after his space racer and brings it back with Seymour and his space hack scraps. The story ends on a fun note as the Steel Twins ask for payments to repair the space hack. Seymour and his space hack play a vital role in many plots, and wait till we cover the Great Galaxy Race, where the Silverhawks compete against the mob with their spacecraft. However, it's not just the space vehicles that are introduced throughout the show. Keep watching as we cover the Fighting Hawks and new recruits of the Silverhawks. Zero the Memory Thief. Monstar's latest plan of annihilation is already in place, as Windhammer creates a galactic storm that causes magnetic interference and prevents Commander Stargazer from relaying critical information to Quicksilver and the rest of the Silverhawks. Quicksilver is riding his jet, Sprinthawk, as he and Tallyhawk finish surveying Bedlama while the others ride on Mirage. Stargazer has gained video confirmation that Hardware, under Monstar's order, is launching a mega missile to destroy Earth in 30 minutes. But before he can successfully deliver the message, Zero, the memory thief, enters the premises and steals every memory about the mission, the mob and the Silverhawks from Stargazer's mind. When Quicksilver arrives, he realizes that Stargazer cannot recognize him and that his memory is lost. He goes through the security tape and notices Seymour's space hack, but the things don't add up. Seymour has foolishly given Zero a ride, who first stops at Brimstar to congratulate Monster on the plan. He again gets in the cab and asks Seymour to take him to Planet Fence, where he can earn gold by selling Stargazer's memories. As Seymour returns, Quicksilver stops him and shares his disappointment. Seymour tells Quicksilver about Zero and realizes how Stargazer's memory got wiped. Understanding that it's just his job, Quicksilver lets Seymour go and travels to Fence to catch Zero, unaware there is a larger threat looming. If you are also a mad Thundercats fan, you might find a lot of similarities between both shows. When it comes to Monstar, he is similar to Mumra, and Earl Hammond voices both. Both also transform into a powerful version by reciting a special incantation. The voice, however, doesn't sound too intimidating to us. We find Monstar enjoying the countdown and imagining Earth blowing up. Quicksilver finds Zero in Fence and brings him back to Hawk Haven, forcing him to reinstall the memories. As his memories return, Stargazer immediately sends Quicksilver to the mission. It proves difficult for Quicksilver to carry out the solo mission with only Tallyhawk as a companion. Moreover, Windhammer's storm affects his course of action, while Monstar transforms. Quicksilver seeks help from Stargazer, who sends the rest of the Silverhawks to Brimstar. Before they arrive, Quicksilver tries to stop the missile launch by himself, but he gets caught by Monstar. The rest of the Silverhawks arrive in time, and as Bluegrass knocks off Monstar from Skyrunner, the twins lift the missile. Quicksilver and Copper Kid destroy the control panel, stopping the countdown, and ultimately, the missile explodes in one of Brimstar's trenches. As the Silverhawks return from their mission, they seem to have accustomed themselves to such daily affairs. The Milk Run. The Silverhawks have captured Melodia and will now escort her to the penal planet. As Commander Stargazer relays the news to Earth, Monstar listens through a tap and gets furious. Hardware approaches him with a new device called the Pinball Beam Blaster that can cause significant damage to the Silverhawks and their vehicles. Hardware displays the function on Yes Man. Back at Hawk Haven, Stargazer tasks Quicksilver, Bluegrass, and Copper Kid with the duty to escort Melodia. But before that, the Steel Twins create a force screen that prevents Melodia from escaping from the space car towed with Mirage. Steelheart further lifts Melodia and places her in the car before switching on the force field. Interestingly, Maggie Wheeler voices Steelheart and Melodia, but uses an entirely different tone for the two characters. Meanwhile, Hardware uses the deep space ejector in Brimstar to send pinball beams that knock on various planets and asteroids before eventually cutting off Mirage's connection with Melodia's Limbo Limo. The easy defeat of the Silverhawks encourages Monstar to attack Hawk Haven, and once again, Hardware uses the beam to damage Hawk Haven's large dish antennae. The Steel Twins head out to fix the antennae, but get attacked by the beam, and they float in space with the antennae. They also notice the others floating in space as they are zapped and tied by Melodia's musical numbers. The Steel Twins land on an asteroid and help the other Silverhawks and Tallyhawks recover. The Silverhawks reconnect with Commander Stargazer, who is hiding beneath the console, and inform them that Hawk Haven is under attack. The Silverhawks head out to Hawk Haven while Stargazer openly challenges Monstar, as he knows Monstar is listening to their conversation. Monstar puts Melodia to task, but Stargazer directly confronts her. Stargazer rides his spacebike Equalizer and fights with Melodia, while the others fight with Windhammer and Hardware, who are sent by Monstar to prevent the Silverhawks from reaching the headquarters in time. Hardware again uses the beam, but the Silverhawks avoid being hit. Steelheart and Steelwill juggle the beam like a ball and throw it back to the bad guys, forcing them to retreat. After the group returns to Hawk Haven, Stargazer arrives on his 300-year-old bike. He calls his adventures a milk run, but unfortunately, Melodia has crossed the light-year limit and is out of jurisdiction. The team still promises to catch her once she sets foot in Limbo again. However, seeing the commander in action, it's time to recognize him as a true veteran. The Hardware Trap, Part 1. This is the series' first two-part segment. The first part starts with Stargazer planning a new approach to fight the mob. He calls in Quicksilver and shows him the various inventions of Hardware that have always helped Monstar with his devious plans. Currently, Hardware is in the Cine Star Diner in Fence and is in quite a grumpy mood when Monstar breaks into the bar in his upgraded version. Monstar accuses Hardware of speaking ill behind his back, to which Hardware retorts that Monstar has not paid him for any of the inventions. Monstar hurts and threatens Hardware, promising to pay once Hardware's inventions successfully eliminate the Silverhawks. As Tallyhawk shows the footage of the fallout to Quicksilver and Stargazer, they plan to trap and capture Hardware to cripple Monstar and his mob. The episode used footage from previous episodes to show the various creations of Hardware, although some notable inventions like the magnetizer, pinball beam, and mega missile are missing. Quicksilver takes the Steel Twins' help to create a spaceship ship and a disguise that will enable him to blend in at the diner. The disguise is good enough as even Tallyhawk fails to recognize him, but the twins think he is taking a risk. A disguised Quicksilver looks for Hardware in Cine Star and threatens Cyborg when Hardware appears. Quicksilver convinces Hardware to travel in his ship and loot other rockets, especially the ones from Earth. Stargazer and the Steel Twins watch them through the ship's hidden cameras and realize that Quicksilver first must get rid of Hardware's roll-up bag. Hardware becomes suspicious of Quicksilver and asks him to open his mask, but Quicksilver asks him to get rid of the bag. Luckily, a rocket from Earth appears, and Hardware gets distracted. As the mob member attempts to shoot at the rocket, he gets thrown back and confined to a cage. Turns out, Hardware has built another Sky Shadow, as it sends pictures of Hardware's condition to Brimstar. Monstar becomes agitated to find his main man captured. Monstar realizes Hardware's value and transforms. But let us just say this once. Monstar is a bully and a loser. There is no point in fearing his Lightstar, considering his minions also have unique powers. Monstar takes Skyrunner to ambush Quicksilver's ship and causes damage. However, Quicksilver finds a loose wire from his ship that he uses to shock Skyrunner. As a result, Monstar also gets electrocuted. The rest of the Silverhawks also arrive, and Bluegrass uses Hotlicks to further attack Monstar, who retreats to Brimstar but promises to rescue Hardware another day. This is a significant win for the cops as they lock up Hardware in the penal planet. However, we are sure it's only a matter of time before the criminal escapes the bars. The Hardware Trap, Part 2. The second part starts with Commander Stargazer sending the Silverhawks on a night patrol to the edges of Limbo, while it seems peace has finally prevailed. However, we know it's only temporary, with the threat of Monstar and his mob always there. The prison guards at Penal Planet mock Hardware during the nighttime patrol, and the troll drifts to sleep while swearing vengeance. In his dreams, Hardware goes through the events of his arrest and wakes up to the sound of buzzsaw cutting through his prison bars. The duo tries to escape the planet, even though the security is alerted and they are surrounded by guards. Elsewhere in space, Yes Man has hailed Seymour's space hack to pick up buzzsaw and Hardware, but as the guards of Penal Planet threaten to laser attack, Seymour takes a U-turn. Buzzsaw gets rid of several guards and also hands the roll-up bag and equipment to Hardware before they go on separate paths. Buzzsaw escapes the planet and gets into the cab as they ask Seymour to take them to Brimstar. This is the first time we see Yes Man out on business, which just proves once again that Hardware is Monstar's main man. Speaking of Hardware, he takes out a dragon-like gliding machine called the Prowler, which helps him reach Hawk Haven. Quicksilver gets the intruder alert and goes to check, but gets attacked by Hardware and locked in an elevator pod. The pod takes Quicksilver into space, and its excessive force weakens him. Quicksilver still manages to call Stargazer, but gets cut off and signals Tallyhawk for help instead. Hardware speaks to Stargazer, but puts him to sleep by sending a knockout gas through the communications lines. Hardware then sabotages Sprinthawk with a lie-activated detonator, and even cuts all the communication lines of the aircraft. Tallyhawk helps Quicksilver escape, and as they return to the base, Hardware steals Copper Kid's space racer and tries to escape. Quicksilver takes the Sprinthawk to chase after him, unaware of the sabotage, while Tallyhawk wakes up Stargazer. The commander checks the security footage and observes Hardware placing the detonator. He calls Quicksilver, but cannot connect ANS, so he instructs Bluegrass to save Quicksilver. It is one of those rarest episodes where Monstar and his fortress on the planet of Brimstar don't make a visual appearance but are only mentioned. We appreciate this refreshing take and change of pace, as finally, one of the mob proves to be as menacing as Monstar. Hardware rejoices, thinking that the daylight will activate the detonator, ending Quicksilver, who also notices that his Sprinthawk cannot match up with the space racer. He tries to harpoon the space racer with a light laser, but again, Hardware takes off with the help of the Prowler. Bluegrass also reaches in time and alerts Quicksilver to eject out seconds before Professor Power switches on the artificial sun. As the detonator explodes, Quicksilver starts falling and the Silverhawks fly in to rescue him. Once again, Hardware shoots at them with a laser, but Bluegrass's lasso helps the Silverhawks hold on as they finally catch up to Quicksilver and form a cluster. Later, Quicksilver apologizes to Stargazer for Hardware escaping, but the commander is optimistic, as he knows there will be a million chances to get him back.
Go home, Silverhawks.
Race against time. It is time for another prison breakout as Monstar needs Pokerface out to officiate his meteor race, and he orders Hardware to find a solution. Hardware meets Time Stopper at Cine Star Diner and asks him to get caught by the Silverhawks so that he can be sent to Penal Planet. Hardware gives Time Stopper spray paint cans to vandalize the space, and we find the teenager painting the message, "Go home, Silverhawks," right in front of Hawk Haven. He also makes sure to sign his artwork so that he can be captured. Stargazer sends Copper Kid to handle the miscreant. And although Time Stopper tries to harass Copper Kid first, the kid is smart enough to avoid wasting time and captures Time Stopper with his swift moves. The kid is definitely one of the interesting Silverhawks, but we feel that the focus on the adults has overshadowed the character. Everything goes according to plan, as when Time Stopper is being taken to his cell, a Rhino guard secretly switches on the light and helps Time Stopper stop the time and break out Pokerface. As there is no mention of a mole or a spy, it is assumed that the Rhino guard is Molecular in disguise. Pokerface further retrieves his laser cane just before time starts again. Of course, Hardware waits for the duo outside, but Copper Kid is also fast enough to catch up. However, Time Stopper stops the time again and throws Kid into space as they escape. When Pokerface is delivered to Brimstar, Monstar refuses to pay the full amount to Time Stopper and rips him off, which makes Time Stopper mad as he promises a payback. Meanwhile, with time starting again, Copper Kid informs everything to Stargazer and follows the rogues in his space racer. Pokerface finally starts officiating the meteor race as many customers are lining up to bet on the meteors. This is basically like a horse race, but instead of horses, we get meteors. Monstar employs Windhammer to create a storm and hurl the meteors toward the target, and the first one to hit the target will win. The customers watch the competition live with Pokerface, and there are no prizes for guessing what the target is, as it's obviously Hawk Haven. As Copper Kid watches the developments, he again alerts Stargazer, who calls the Mirage for help. Copper Kid finds it difficult to break the meteors, but Time Stopper arrives, and Monstar is in shock as the boy stops time to help Copper Kid break off the meteors. However, this has made Monstar furious, and once again, he transforms to take matters into his own hands. He appears in front of the frozen meteors and shoots at Copper Kid. As Kid avoids the laser, one of the meteors gets broken. Elsewhere, the customers get mad and want their money back. The rest of the Silverhawks also arrive and move away from the meteors as Copper Kid tells them that only 10 seconds is left till they start moving again. Unaware of that, Monstar and his Skyrunner fall directly into the collision course and get knocked out by a giant red meteor. The Silverhawks come together to destroy every meteor before they reach Hawk Haven. Although Pokerface has escaped, the Silverhawks celebrate the small win, not to mention the end of Monstar's illegal races. Operation Big Freeze. A new monstrous plan is set in motion as Monstar meets with Windhammer and Hardware on a desolate asteroid out of nowhere. He instructs Windhammer to create an ice storm that will freeze Limbo Galaxy and end the Silverhawks. Monstar also explains that the mob will be safe in the warm atmosphere of Brimstar, as they will eventually take over Dolari, Automata, and even Bedlama. After Monstar leaves, Windhammer creates a blizzard with his tuning fork, but Quicksilver and Tallyhawk find them during their regular patrol. Windhammer freezes Sprinthawk, and although Quicksilver is able to unfreeze himself, he cannot fly it. As Tallyhawk tries to help him, Quicksilver asks him to go to Hawk Haven and inform the others. Windhammer increases the strength of the blizzard to ensure Tallyhawk can't find his way, but the bird reaches Hawk Haven in a frozen state. The Steel Twins thaw the bird, but it's still weak. It seems Stargazer lacks compassion as he forces Tallyhawk to reveal the information that he has collected. If you think about it as an adult, using cybernetics on a hawk sounds problematic, like many other things that were grossly ignored in this 80s animated show. At least Steelheart is compassionate enough as she stops Stargazer from questioning the bird. And the commander decides to get Copper Kid's help decoding the rest of the coordinates for Quicksilver. Back in Brimstar, Monstar is unsatisfied with having only one Silverhawk down and orders Hardware to freeze the others. Hardware again asks for payment, but we know Monstar will again make an excuse to avoid paying for the service. Hardware arrives before Hawkhaven to freeze it with his ice gun. The Silverhawks sense the attack and notice Hardware freezing the control center. The Steel Twins work together to break the block of ice blocking the launch area, and the Silverhawks leave on a mission aboard Mirage. Monstar calls Hardware and alerts him about the breakout. The Silverhawks chase after Hardware and arrive near the asteroid from where Windhammer creates the blizzards. Although the Silverhawks almost defeated Hardware, Windhammer's galactic cyclone proves strong enough for the Silverhawks and every planet on Limbo. Although this series has been a cult classic, Limbo is nearer to Earth than the closest star in the Milky Way. It doesn't make sense, but it's a cartoon, after all. But enough of that, as we have a problem at hand, and Stargazer only has Tallyhawk to send to rescue the others. Tallyhawk drags Sprinthawk in front of the artificial sun to thaw it, and Quicksilver helps Mirage and the others recover. Together, they defeat Windhammer and Hardware, who retreat to Brimstar. Limbo returns to normal as every planet gets thawed, but Tallyhawk is unwilling to take his much-deserved rest, proving that he is the ultimate Silverhawk. The Ghost Ship. The episode opens with Buzzsaw and Mumbo Jumbo smuggling Limbo gold in a truck filled with fruits, with Tallyhawk spying on them. Stargazer sends Quicksilver to stop them, and Buzzsaw tries his best to lose the tail. When the gold proves too heavy for them to go on hyperdrive, Buzzsaw starts throwing the crates of the fruit with gold towards Sprinthawk. Quicksilver stops following them, assuming Monstar will punish the mob for losing the gold. However, Monstar blames everything on the Silverhawks. Surprisingly, Yes Man has an idea to get rid of the Silverhawks. Yes Man suggests that they refurbish an old Starfire battlecruiser from a junkyard and make space for the mob to hide. When the Silverhawks take the cruiser to Hawkhaven, they will attack. The Trojan Horse idea is perhaps the wisest one from Yes Man, but again, Monstar takes the credit for the brilliant idea. Yes Man is undoubtedly a space counterpart of Slythe from Thundercats. Not only are both characters reptilian, but they are also voiced by Bob McFadden. As planned, Stargazer notices the cruiser approaching but fails to connect with anyone aboard the ship. He sends Quicksilver to investigate the empty ship, but as the lieutenant enters, the mob spies on him from a hidden chamber. Stargazer asks Quicksilver to tie the cruiser with Hawkhaven using laser lights, which gives the mob the chance to break in. The mob surrounds Stargazer and Quicksilver, holding them at gunpoint. When Bluegrass calls the base from Mirage, the mob forces Stargazer to communicate normally and ask the others to come back. While Stargazer obliges, he uses his mechanical eye to show Bluegrass they have been compromised. The other Silverhawks attack the mob, and as Buzzsaw and Mumbo Jumbo flee, Hardware gets caught by the Silverhawks. Stargazer has another idea and forces Hardware to invite Monstar to watch the demolition of Hawkhaven. Earlier, Monstar started blaming Yes Man because his plan was seemingly failing. This is another proof that Monstar has the makings of a high school bully and is ready to take credit but not the fall. Monstar transforms to head out in Skyrunner, but before he arrives at Hawkhaven, he sees the cruiser approaching and assumes Hardware is welcoming him. The cruiser starts shooting at Skyrunner and electrocutes the squid and its master. Although the squid crushes the cruiser and gets hold of Hardware, Stargazer reveals himself as the actual pilot and attacker. Monstar gets threatened and leaves with Hardware. Even though the Silverhawks joke amongst themselves, it's probably one of the stupidest moves to let Monstar get away with Hardware. Now, does this plot make sense to you? Do let us know in the comments section.
It's past your bedtime, kid!
The Great Galaxy Race. The latest contest between the Silverhawks and Monstar's mob is a race, and we can rest it up to Monstar to have some devious plans. The Great Galaxy Race has contenders Copper Kid in his Space Racer, Bluegrass in the hot seat, Melodia in Limbo Limo, and Hardware in Zoomer. As the race starts, Hardware is the last to take off, with his spaceship showing signs of obvious damage. Both Monstar and Stargazer keep track of the race from their individual base, but Stargazer disapproves of the Silverhawks racing against the mob. On the contrary, Monstar finds the race a perfect opportunity to rob Dolare. The race requires the contestants to go past the different planets across Limbo, and Lord Cash has a warm welcome for the racers, but he witnesses a rude interruption by Buzzsaw and Pokerface, who have come to loot the gold. Bluegrass notices the thugs and stops them by driving them mad with his music. He further breaks their vehicle, ensuring the rogues escape without the gold. As Bluegrass rejoins the race, Hardware tries to blow him up with a laser, but a jam in the laser gun causes it to blow up. The junk and shrapnel from the explosion damage Hot Seat, and Bluegrass goes to Automata to repair his spacecraft. It is now up to Copper Kid, but he is near the penal planet, unaware that Mumbo Jumbo is waiting for him. While Monstar rejoices at the plan, Stargazer worries about Copper Kid. Mumbo Jumbo dresses as a plumber to avoid being detected, but he ties a guard as he finally moves on Copper Kid, who quickly gets rid of him and approaches Brimstar. Meanwhile, Hot Seat gets taken by a bubble inside Automata, where the main computer, Monotone, takes the vehicle to repair it so Bluegrass can rejoin the race. Monstar further employs Windhammer to freeze Copper Kid and his space racer, but once again, Copper Kid quickly resolves the situation and goes around Brimstar to make the journey back. Monstar now breaks the race rules and makes radio contact with Melodia, ordering her to intercept Copper Kid and stop him from winning. Melodia lures Copper Kid with a distress signal, but Stargazer realizes it is a ruse. When Copper Kid arrives to help, Melodia knocks him out and steals his space racer. Bluegrass also rejoins the race and leads. Not realizing it's Melodia in the space racer, Monstar orders to blow it up with his vaporizer. Although the destruction of Space Racer would have meant the death of Melodia, it is possible that she noticed the vaporizer and jumped off the space racer. Bluegrass is shocked by the event and comes near the Limbo limo, only to find an unconscious Copper Kid. We certainly feel a lack of coordination between Monstar and his Goonies, and Monstar is too late to realize his mistake. Monstar orders Yes Man to attack Limbo limo again, but Copper Kid gets on the Hot Seat in time just as the Limbo limo blows up. The two Silverhawks finally make it to the finishing line of the race and win the prize. Fantascreen. We have now reached the 20th episode of the series, and the mob has plotted something significantly dangerous to overthrow the Silverhawks. Molecular, disguised as Grodd the Informer, asks Steelwill to meet him on Fence. Hardware is with Molecular when he calls Monstar to update him on the newest creation, Fantascreen, which can drain Steelwill's willpower, make him see his last fantasies, and become a mindless slave. Hardware further comments that if the man with the most extraordinary willpower can be brainwashed, so can the others. As Steelwill approaches the asteroid, Molecular again appears as Grodd to lure him in. Hardware then switches on the Fantascreen, which pulls in Steelwill with its tentacles. We see that Steelwill's fantasy is to be a giant bird-like tallyhawk to eliminate Monstar. When Steelwill comes out of the machine, he is a mindless slave to Hardware, but Steelheart senses something off as she works in Hawkhaven. Here is a fun fact. Steelheart is a minute older than Steelwill. The siblings not only talk telepathically, but also share a bond of empathy. So when one sibling feels something, the other senses it too. This is fairly demonstrated in this episode. As the Silverhawks head out to rescue Steelwill, Hardware brings him to Monstar. They plan to bend every Silverhawk to their will using the Fantascreen, and Tallyhawk captures the information. The Silverhawks aboard the Mirage receive the footage and start following Hardware, who takes Steelwill to Fence. A fight ensues, and the Silverhawks emerge victorious in the first round, but they release from the Mirage and enter Hardware's warehouse. Monstar also transforms himself and arrives to corner the Silverhawks further. Steelheart takes a hit from her brother, while the other Silverhawks enter the warehouse to fight the Fantascreen. They soon get captured and turned into mindless zombies like Steelwill, and Monstar urges Steelheart to give up. However, Steelheart is not the one to give up so quickly, and we are a fan. As Steelwill approaches to fight her, Steelheart tries to establish telepathic contact with her brother. Remember, We told you this one is all about sibling love. She manages to remove the mind control over Steel Will. Looks like Hardware will not be paid again and should be cutting losses now. He also gets physically knocked down by the twins as they destroy the Fantascreen. Although Monstar uses the laser lance, it is not enough against the Silverhawks. Once again, Monstar leaves with his usual array of threats, and Hardware is quickly to follow behind. It also turns out that all the Silverhawks had the same fantasy inside the Fantascreen, ensuring they were unified and focused. Hotwing hits Limbo. Considering the Silverhawks are space cops, they are quite limited in number, which is the source of annoyance for Commander Stargazer. Similarly, Monstar has decided to take advantage of the situation. At first, Quicksilver gets called to the light year limit for a distress call, and then Lord Cash calls about Mumbo Jumbo and Melodia attacking. Stargazer sends Copper Kid to handle the situation, but soon Professor Power calls about Pokerface, Buzzsaw and Windhammer attacking his artificial sun. The rest of the Silverhawks leave to handle the situation, and as they leave, Sky Shadow sends a report to Brimstar. Monstar rejoices that his plan to divide and conquer the Silverhawks is working. Meanwhile, Stargazer pesters the bureaucrats on Earth to send more volunteers, and Rawling finally sends the new volunteer Hotwing to join the Silverhawks. Stargazer is surprised to know that Hotwing was not a soldier but a magician before volunteering. However, it is the first instance of the series adding a person of colour. This is noteworthy considering this series has featured a diverse range of aliens and creatures. Back in Limbo, Quicksilver discovers that Hardware was the one who was sending distress signals. Quicksilver's Sprint Hawk gets attacked by Skyrunner, while Monstar hits Tallyhawk, who is captured by Sky Shadow. Elsewhere, Molecular morphs into Quicksilver as he calls Copper Kid, while Melodia and Mumbo Jumbo tie themselves in fake handcuffs. They capture and lock Copper Kid in the Roadstar. However, it's difficult to dupe Stargazer, who sends his companion Slybird to investigate the situation. As for those in the Mirage, they find the area of the artificial sun eerily quiet, but not for long, as they get attacked by Skyrunner. After Hotwing arrives in Hawk Haven, he introduces himself as Squadron Leader, while Stargazer shows him footage of the Silverhawks being transported to Brimstar. Stargazer commands Hotwing to go to Brimstar to rescue the others, and all he needs is a ride. It is time for Hotwing to get acquainted with the jolly good Seymour and his space hack. There's also a new addition in the form of Zeke, a duck-like alien who now rides shotgun and probably heckles the passengers for money. Seymour needed a partner like Zeke, considering the people he deals with. Seymour tells Hotwing the same thing as he drops the cop off in Brimstar, and Zeke helps him find the secret door to the dungeon. Hotwing meets with the Silverhawks, who are imprisoned, and uses his mind to shoot lasers that help the others break free. Yes Man notices them and alerts Monstar, while Hardware shoots at the Silverhawks. Hotwing stops Yes Man, who tells him it's too late, but the new cop thinks he can stop the transformation. Overconfident much, Hotwing fails to stop the transformation, but redirects the Lightstar's attack on Monstar. Steelheat hotwires the Roadstar, and together all of them escape Brimstar just as Hotwing closes the fortress door with his magical power. With this addition to the Silverhawks, we can hope for more diverse storylines. The Bounty Hunter. At the beginning of the episode, Monstar calls for an emergency meeting with the mob, where he shows them footage from the episodes Save the Sun, Zero the Memory Thief, and The Great Galaxy Race, to show that every time, the Silverhawks have foiled their plans. Monstar orders the mob to break out the Bounty Hunter from the penal planet. Windhammer and Buzzsaw break out the Bounty Hunter and bring him to Monstar as Tallyhawk captures the evidence. Monstar reminds the Bounty Hunter about Commander Stargazer. Stargazer had arrested Bounty Hunter 200 years back, and now the mercenary wants revenge. He decides to defeat a few Silverhawks first to boost up his energy, and the first victim is Copper Kid. Bounty Hunter drains all the energy from Copper Kid and grows bigger. Stargazer also worries and sends the Steel Twins to find out what happened to Copper Kid. The Steel Twins travel to Sector 9, where they find Copper Kid's space racer and fall into Bounty Hunter's trap. Both of them get their energy zapped. Back at Hawk Haven, Stargazer, Quicksilver, and Bluegrass watch footage of Bounty Hunter traveling with the mob when Seymour arrives with a videotape from the Bounty Hunter. The video has footage of the Bounty Hunter zapping the Steel Twins. Quicksilver pleads with Stargazer to pay Seymour his bills, and in a shocking turnout, Stargazer pays him with 1,000 limbo dollars. Stargazer further shows the Silverhawks old footage of how the Bounty Hunter absorbs energy. As Stargazer looks for his solar bazooka, the duo leaves for Bounty Hunter's lair. Quicksilver and Tallyhawk sneak into the hanging rock and find his friends pinned to the walls. But just as Quicksilver tries to help Steelheart, an energy ray pulls at him. Tallyhawk tries to rescue Quicksilver, but Bounty Hunter emerges from hiding and zaps him. Tallyhawk sends emergency footage to Stargazer while Bluegrass approaches in his hot seat and lasso. Interestingly, Tallyhawk is not only made to look like a red-tailed hawk, but also has a similar call, which is one of the things the series was accurate for. Coming back to Bluegrass, he falls victim to Bounty Hunter's energy-absorbing abilities. Bluegrass speaks our minds when he says he should learn to fly without the Mirage. It is now up to Stargazer to defeat the Bounty Hunter. But aren't we forgetting Hotwing? Stargazer finally finds his 200-year-old solar-powered bazooka and books Seymour's space hack to reach the hanging rock. Stargazer even pays in advance to reach the place. And once he faces off with Bounty Hunter, the bazooka works its magic in weakening the mercenary. It also diffuses the energy straps, releasing all the Silverhawks. As Stargazer takes the heavy Bounty Hunter back to Penal Planet in Seymour's cab, the commander returns to his old self and threatens the cab driver. Unfortunately for Seymour, he also has to fill out paperwork to get paid in cash for the trip back. However, this is not the end of the Bounty Hunter, as he returns later to finally get back his revenge on Stargazer. So keep up with us as we explore more such plots, stories that cover time travel, gang war, and even more of Seymour's heroic adventures.
Don't even think about it, Hardware.
Zeke's fumble. For a change, the story starts at Starship Casino as Pokerface calls Brimstar. Pokerface has a film roll of data on Silverhawks' secrets and operations that he obtained from one of the mob members on Earth. And now, Pokerface wants to sell it to Monstar. As Monstar agrees to buy it, Pokerface calls Seymour for a ride to Brimstar. Seymour refuses to take him to Brimstar, but Pokerface is willing to pay triple, and Zeke agrees despite Seymour's inhibitions. On their way, Zeke tries to sell Pokerface a fish and annoys him. Moreover, Quicksilver and Tallyhawk start following them, and Pokerface forces Seymour to speed up. Once again, Zeke ignores Seymour's protests and increases the speed of the taxi for more money, but it can only go a little fast. Scared that Quicksilver might catch him with the microfilm, Pokerface hides it in the back seat and exits the taxi. Quicksilver finally stops the taxi, but before he can scold Seymour, Zeke explains that Pokerface forced them to speed up. Quicksilver further asks Seymour to take his taxi to Hawk Haven for repairs. Meanwhile, Monstar gets angry at Pokerface for losing the microfilm and asks him to get it. As Seymour and Zeke argue on their way to Hawk Haven, they get pursued by Pokerface and Hardware. Zeke is a rather bad influence who suggests selling the taxi for a limousine and has all the wrong ideas. Seymour speeds his cab as it releases more fumes and gets away from the mob. The Steel Twins repairs the space hack free of cost, and Seymour appreciates the efforts. On the other hand, Monstar assembles the mob to find the space hack and the microfilm. Unfortunately or not, Zeke finds the microfilm and refuses to give it to the Silverhawks. He leaves the space hack to go and sell it in Fence. After Zeke leaves, Seymour gets attacked by Melodia and Buzzsaw. It seems the mob has nicknames for each other, like Pokerface is Pokey and Windhammer is Windy, which shows that at least they are friends with each other. The villains slice the cab to find the microfilm. Seymour then tells Quicksilver and Stargazer everything as the Silverhawk decides to handle the situation. Monstar and Melodia also have the same idea as they realize Zeke the Beak must be the one with the microfilm. Melodia, Hardware, and Pokerface confront Zeke at Cine Star Diner, and as Zeke feigns ignorance, the microfilm rolls out of his pocket. But before the mob can get their hand on it, Quicksilver arrives. Zeke tries to escape with the microfilm, but Quicksilver takes it. The Silverhawk also destroys the mob's weapons and warns them to leave, as it would not end well for them. Later at Hawk Haven, Seymour worries about what will happen to his cab and source of living when Zeke suggests taking a vacation. This, finally, drives Seymour mad as he goes after Zeke for a payback. The Fighting Hawks. As Monstar and his mob's power over Limbo increases, Commander Stargazer has employed the technologically driven Steel Twins to create Fighting Hawks to support the Silverhawk members. The Fighting Hawks that still need to run a test include Sideman, the Rift Hawk, Mayday, the Sonic Hawk, Stronghold, the Claw Hawk, and Razor, the Tomahawk. Coincidentally or not, Monstar has also employed hardware to create multiple copies of the Sky Shadow. They enter the half-planet of Automata to use its machine monotone to make multiple copies of the Sky Shadow. Quicksilver and Tallyhawk arrive at Automata, but first, they are stopped by Sky Shadow. Quicksilver averts the bird and enters the planet to arrest Hardware and Monstar. Although Monotone initially rejects the programming disk, Hardware's persistent efforts bear fruit as she finally reprograms herself to follow Hardware's directions. It captures Quicksilver and starts a mass production of Sky Shadows. As the first batch of Sky Shadows emerges from Automata, Tallyhawk fights them valiantly and destroys them. Hardware continues production, and fighting so many Sky Shadows proves difficult for Tallyhawk, who takes a hit. He still manages to send footage to Stargazer, who forces the Steel Twins to release the Fighting Hawks. While Steelheart feels the modifications are not yet ready, Steelwill encourages her to finish quickly. Once they are done, Steelheart assigns Sideman to Bluegrass, Mayday to Copper Kid, and Razor to Steelwill, and she takes Stronghold for herself. The Fighting Hawks and Mirage arrive at Automata to save the day, and Sideman is the first to help Tallyhawk get rid of a few Sky Shadows. The Silverhawks also join in the fun as they charge toward the planet and ask Bluegrass to release the rest of the birds. The addition of these birds elevates the plot, and the episode has also mentioned the updates on Stargazer's Sly Bird. However, once again, Hotwing or any companion bird is not mentioned, which is a buzzkill for us. Once the Silverhawks are inside the factory, Hardware and Monstar send in more Sky Shadows to fight them, but Steelwill uses Razor to slice them up. The group arrives at the production unit and destroys the machines, ensuring no more Sky Shadows can be made. Steelheart uses Stronghold to stop them, and although Monstar escapes, the cart with Hardware crashes onto the land. He still gets taken away by the faithful Sky Shadows. Copper Kid also removes Hardware's programming from Monotone, and although there are a few 100 Sky Shadows in the universe, the Fighting Hawks are enough to get them down. The Renegade Hero. The episode opens with the mob chasing after Brigadier Brightlight as he heads toward Hawkhaven. Commander Stargazer helps the Brigadier to reach safely and switches on Hawkhaven's shielding system. Mumbo Jumbo tries to break in but fails, and Buzzsaw urges him to return to Bedlama, where they have important business. An injured Brigadier Brightlight informs Stargazer about the mob taking over Bedlama, as Governor Xander is now following the orders of the mob. As Steelwill treats the Brigadier, Stargazer sends the others to Bedlama to investigate the situation. Once in Bedlama, the Silverhawks face off with Buzzsaw and Mumbo Jumbo. It's no surprise that these weaker mobs are easily defeated by Copper Kid, Steelheart, and Quicksilver. However, when Quicksilver puts them in handcuffs, the mob calls for the local police. The police of Bedlama ignore the Silverhawks and release the villains, which would have made Stargazer furious. Quicksilver maintains his cool and demands to meet Governor Xander. Of course, Xander's meek behaviour doesn't fool anyone, especially not Quicksilver, who questions the governor about the several armoured space vehicles and mega missiles which are enough to conquer Limbo. As Xander takes them outside to show how peaceful the city is, Steelheart notices his shadow and realises it's Molecular. Molecular is a shapeshifter who can rearrange his molecules, but his prime weaknesses are not being able to replicate the silhouette, intelligence, or mind of the person he is impersonating. Before the Silverhawks can arrest him, Molecular throws tar at them and informs his mob friends to attack. Unable to move, Steelheart telepathically connects to her brother and takes his willpower to help break out of the tar. She blasts the mob away and calls for Bluegrass to pull Quicksilver and Copper Kid out of the sticky situation. Once they are back at Hawkhaven, Brigadier Brightlight shares that Monstar has probably abducted the real Xander, and the team uses Mayday to locate the governor. The Silverhawks find the governor on a desolate asteroid near a sector where aliens create vacation homes. Meanwhile, The Molecular, Buzzsaw, and Mumbo Jumbo inform Monstar everything as Yes Man brings the news of the Silverhawks finding Governor Zander. Monstar assures the mob that Melodia will handle the situation. Melodia's notes cause significant pain to all the Silverhawks, and even Bluegrass finds it difficult to fight back. The rock duel between Melodia and Bluegrass takes an intense form as both play their instrument with all their might. However, before Bluegrass's strings tear apart, Melodia's guitar breaks apart, and the Silverhawks are free to rescue the governor. Melodia returns to Monstar and gets an earful, while Governor Zander and Brigadier Brightlight get reinstated to their positions. As another crisis is averted, it might be time for Monstar to think outside the box.
The real Steelheart.
One-on-one, a meteor falls on Brimstar, but Monstar is least bothered. However, Steelheart has been secretly hitching a ride inside the meteor to break into Monstar's fortress. An anxious Steelwill confronts Stargazer about sending his sister alone on a dangerous mission and threatens to break Hawkhaven. Stargazer helps Steelwill calm down and explains that Steelheart has gone on a covert mission, which involves finding out if Monstar is making clones out of the Silverhawks. As luck would have it, Steelheart notices Hardware testing out her clone, and as Hardware leaves, she follows the clone to another chamber. Hardware meets up with Monstar, who shares his plan to send a fake distress call from a space freighter to lure out the Silverhawks so that he can replace them with the clones. As Monstar wants to check up on the clones through video, he and Hardware notice that the shrouds on the clones are removed, and there are 2 Steelheart clones. Realizing that one of them is real, Hardware rushes to capture her, but Steelheart dupes Hardware into freezing her own clone and acts like a robot. Monstar's plans go according to plan, as the other Silverhawks rush to answer the distress call. Molecular again disguises himself and welcomes them aboard, but stops them with his Molecutar. Clones of Quicksilver, Copper Kid and Bluegrass replace the real ones and connect with Steelwill, who is still at the base, and then they go back. Before heading inside Hawkhaven, Quicksilver and Copper Kid's clones destroy the antennae, disrupting the communication. Considering the series is set in the 29th century, the communication systems are a bit primitive, but it is what people in the 80s imagined the future to be. As a result, Steelheart has to rely on telepathy to pass the information to her brother, something she could have done much earlier and avoided all the confusion. Steelwill doesn't get time to explain anything to Stargazer and starts fighting the clones as they enter, but the clones pretend like Steelwill has gone rogue, and Stargazer temporarily shuts him off. The commander still senses something amiss with the clones' behaviours. Meanwhile, Steelheart also gets exposed as she tries to rescue the real Quicksilver from the tar, and Hardware attacks her. Steelheart avoids getting shot down by Hardware and fights back. Quicksilver gets rid of the rest of the tar and finally joins in, throwing Hardware off the freighter, who escapes with the help of the Prowler. The Silverhawks duo then rescues Copper Kid and Bluegrass. With the Mirage taken away by the clones, the Silverhawks hotwire the ship, and Bluegrass flies it to Hawkhaven. The clones have locked a sleeping Steelwill in the quarters and attempt to attack Stargazer, but the real Silverhawks interrupt them. However, Stargazer has only been pretending to sleep as he drops the fakes into space before we can enjoy an actual face-off between the clones and the Silverhawks. Stargazer becomes clear that he identified the clones by their little too perfect behaviour. As Stargazer points out, the Silverhawks are part metal and part real, which means they are individuals with humanity that cannot be mimicked by metallic clones. With that knowledge, we finish this could have been epic episode.
Think fast, beef brains.
No more Mr. Nice Guy. In this episode, we see an unexpected villain taking center space. But before we get onto that, let's see what happened in the beginning. Stargazer commands Steelheart to escort a bullion ship 16 carrying a large amount of gold from Bedlama to Dolare. As Steelheart worries about Monstar jeopardizing the transfer, Stargazer assures her that Monstar has other things on his plate. In Brimstar, Yes Man shares the news about some of the regular customers at Cine Star Diner brewing trouble to create their own mob. Monstar wants to handle the situation, but can't let go of the opportunity to steal the gold. So Yes Man suggests that he go into the transformation chamber with Monstar and become a tough guy. Maybe just for fun, or because he is desperate. Monstar allows that, but no appearance changes could be seen on the serpentine creature. However, Monstar is impressed by Yes Man's menacing behavior and increased strength. He sends Yes Man with Mumbo Jumbo to loot the bullion ship. Monstar himself goes to fence and threatens Space Bandit, Cyclops and Rhino, but they revolt back and infuriate Monstar. Although these characters were featured before, they gained some importance from this episode onwards. Coming back to Steelheart, she notices the Roudstar approaching as she guides the bullion ship. Yes Man breaks the cockpit of Sprinthawk in a surprising move and abducts Steelheart as they now chase after the bullion ship. Yes Man throws the guard and the driver off the ship and takes it back to Brimstar. Mumbo Jumbo locks up Steelheart, but she cleverly instigates him and escapes the prison. Meanwhile, Yes Man calls a meeting with Time Stopper and Melodia, showing off his strength and prowess as he calls himself the Boss Worm. As Steelheart escapes with the money and the bullion ship, Melodia tries to stop her but fails. Time Stopper also tries to stop the time, but for the first time, Steelheart does something that is on our mind, which is to destroy Time Stopper's clock. While Yes Man and Melodia follow Steelheart in the Roadstar, Time Stopper realizes that he should inform Monstar about what's going on behind his back. Back at Cine Star Diner, the fight between Monstar and Space Bandit's mob finally concludes as Monstar wins. Time Stopper jetpacks to the diner to find Monstar sipping on a limbo cooler and informs him about Yes Man taking over the mob. In space, the chase continues, and the villains are able to cause significant damage to the bullion ship. But when Yes Man tries to follow the ship, Monstar appears and hears Yes Man plotting to overthrow Monstar later. Monstar's laser lance returns Yes Man to the creepy worm-like character and at the mercy of the Planet Master. Steelheart safely returns to base, and the story ends with the Silverhawks joking about Yes Man's future. Music of the Spheres. Remember Halley's Comet? Well, it's entering Limbo Galaxy, and Sergeant Steelheart has a plan. It is one of those rare instances when the Silverhawks have a devious plan ready before Monstar. Steelheart notes that the comet just barely misses hitting Brimstar, but if they change its path, the comet can knock Brimstar from its alignment with the Moonstar, which would mean Monstar won't be able to use the red beams of the Moonstar to transform. Steelheart asks Bluegrass to do the task, and his sick beats change the comet's path. Yes Man notices the comet and informs Monstar, who sends Melodia to fight off Bluegrass. As both the musical warriors try to deflect the comet's path, it causes the comet to get overpowered. The explosion of energy from the comet knocks out Bluegrass, who further gets knocked off into space by Melodia. Moreover, those in Hawk Haven notice that the wild comet is now on a collision course with Bedlama. Stargazer informs Governor Xander about the impending doom and asks him to evacuate the planet. Meanwhile, Quicksilver and Steelheart take Sidemen to control the situation. As Halley's comet approaches Bedlama, the planet experiences storms, and everyone tries to evacuate in a hurry. This plot device was probably used because Halley's comet was visible on 9th of February 1986, while the episode was aired on the 15th of October 1986. The Silverhawks arrive to save the day, but Melodia is not far behind, and another fight occurs. Sideman, the Rifthawk, sits on an antenna to amplify its sounds and stalls the comet from hitting Bedlama. However, Melodia remerges and thwarts the plan by breaking the antennae. With no other option left for the time being, the Silverhawks, Xander and Brightlight hide inside the Space Trooper headquarters. The comet bounces off the planet, causing some damage, while Melodia makes sure that the comet hits the planet multiple times. This proves dangerous for Quicksilver and Steelheart as they are stuck in locked cabins while the planet is almost going down. We can't help but wonder if Steelheart's impulsive idea was responsible for the devastation. Unable to make a radio connection with anybody, Stargazer desperately calls for the Silverhawks. Although Copper Kid and Hotwing aren't featured in this episode, they are mentioned by Stargazer. It is also the first time Hotwing has been mentioned since his debut, which is one of the downsides for this series, as the character has much potential to be traversed. Nevertheless, Stargazer connects with Colonel Bluegrass, who wakes up in time. Stargazer sends him to save those in Bedlama. Melodia has also brought in Bedlama near Brimstar, which would make stealing from Bedlama easier. However, It's a pipe dream as Bluegrass arrives and uses hot licks to nudge Brimstar away from Bedlama. The others also escape from the Space Trooper headquarters in time. Although Monstar is furious that he can no longer transform, he can still find a solution. But as the Silverhawks and Xander point out, this may mean a significant fall in crimes. Limbo Gold Rush. The story starts at Planet Automata, where an alien person sings and sieves gold from a golden river. He gets jumped by Space Bandit, who snatches the gold from the man and throws him away. Space Bandit then collects more gold and returns to Cine Star Diner, paying off all the previous bills and buying Limbo Cooler for his friends, Cyborg and Rhino. They further warn bartender Harry not to divulge the information about Automata to anyone. Meanwhile, Bluegrass travels through space with Sideman, who is converted into a guitar when he notices the robot mule running away with a license plate, mentioning Prospector 1. Stargazer helps Bluegrass identify Prospector 1 as the old man attacked by Space Bandit. Stargazer also informs that Prospector 1 can be found in Automata, and when Bluegrass reaches the planet, he finds Space Bandit and his friends sieving gold. The news also reaches Monstar, thanks to Harry, who betrays the Space Bandit, and Monstar sends Melodia to claim his 99.9% cut from Space Bandit's crew. Back on Automata, Bluegrass disguises himself with a shroud and calls himself a marauder when he seeks to help the space outlaws in moving the gold. However, his cover gets blown away when Melodia makes a sudden attack. Bluegrass falls off into one of Automata's mine shafts, but Sideman helps him from crashing down. He meets Prospector 1 inside Automata, who seems more joyful than usual. Believe it or not, this series was insanely popular in Latin America, especially Mexico. Thanks to the rock and sometimes jazzy music, the show became popular enough among the people who were often found singing along as soon as the theme started playing. So, if you are looking for a fellow fan, we suggest humming the tune. Picking up where we left off, Melodia forces the outlaws to load up gold into her car when they notice Sideman flying away along with Hot Seat. Bluegrass's friends get worried as Sideman returns without him, and Stargazer calls the team for an emergency briefing. Stargazer shares all the information and orders them to go to Automata, but other problems arise as to who will pilot Mirage. Although we have seen Quicksilver and Steelheart fly Sprint Hawk, the logical reasoning gets ignored, and the Silverhawks appoint Copper Kid as the pilot since he has received private lessons from Bluegrass. However, it makes sense when Copper Kid has to operate the release process as Quicksilver and the Steel Twins get down on the planet. The Silverhawks and the villains start a brawl, with the outlaws bailing out of the fight. Melodia gets chased by Copper Kid in the Mirage as she tries to escape with the gold. However, the robot mule is the real hero of this episode as he kicks Melodia's limo and makes all the gold fall back on Automata. Sideman also rescues Bluegrass and Prospect 1 out of the shaft. As the team heads back, they sing another song of unity to keep the vibe intact.
Enough, Hot Wing! You're going to do a disappearing trick!
Countdown to 0. Problems in Automata are not over, as Monotone faces a malfunction in the factory and informs Stargazer of the same. The commander sends WizKid Copper Kid to resolve the situation. Monstar and his Goonies rejoice at the news and plan an ambush to overthrow Monotone and rule Automata. A big part of this plan includes Molecular posing as Copper Kid and helping Zero gain entry, which will wipe out Monotone's memory. As planned, the duo chases after Copper Kid, and Molecular transforms into a Sky Shadow. He abducts Copper Kid and takes his form to ride the space racer and enter Automata. Once inside, Molecular reveals himself and deactivates the security measures to help Zero enter. As Zero goes to remove all of Monotone's memories, Molecular shuts Copper Kid in a cell. The memory wipe shuts down Monotone and Automata. However, Copper Kid has his wits around as he sends the space racer into space to send an SOS signal for Hawk Haven to watch. Stargazer sends Hotwing to rescue Copper Kid, and he takes the Sprint Hawk. In Automata, Zero finishes wiping all of Monotone's memory, while Hotwing uses his special magical abilities to get inside the cell and free Copper Kid. They then confront the mob, and as Zero gets inside the Monotone machine, Copper Kid is left to bind Molecular. However, there is a twist in the tale, as Molecular whistles to call his companion bird, Volt Ura, to rescue him and take him back to Brimstar as Copper Kid falls off the planet. The first ever wave of toy lines had robotic sidekick birds for all the Silverhawk and mob members, but only a few made it to the show. As for Hotwing, his Kenner toy versions had both legs in metal, which is not the case from this episode onwards, as there is some flesh in the ones with flames. Inside Monotone, Hotwing uses magic tricks to jump on Zero. Meanwhile, Molecular informs Monstar about the interruptions, and the Planet Master takes to the transformation chamber. This could be a continuity issue, or we are to assume that Monstar has found a way to realign Brimstar with Moonstar. Back inside Monotone, Zero conjures a spider crab-like life form to corner Hotwing, and Monstar also appears at the same time. Zero's life form proves a hindrance for Monstar, and the chaotic condition allows Hotwing to rip off the memory disk from Zero's chest and come out of the machine with the help of his tricks. Hotwing helps Monotone regain her memories, and she expels the intruder from Automata. As Hotwing returns to the Sprint Hawk, he finds Copper Kid relaxing in space. He gives the boy a pair of electric skates as they ski back to the base. Amber Amplifier. The mob's latest plan is to steal the Amber Amplifier that powers the artificial sun, and as Molecular and Hardware approach the area, Professor Power gets an intruder alert. He informs Stargazer, who sends Quicksilver for a reconnaissance. Professor Power himself detects and inspects an intruder in the power room. He finds Molecular stealing the Amber Amplifier and tries to stop him while Quicksilver enters the premises. Hardware notices Quicksilver and assembles his ice gun. As Quicksilver goes to stop Molecular, Hardware freezes both the Silverhawk and Professor Power in a block of ice. The mob leaves with the Amber Amplifier for Brimstar so that they can use it to make a super weapon. While Professor Power tries to melt the block of ice, he comments that it would take hours, and Quicksilver reminds him that it would be too late. The delay worries Stargazer, who sends the rest of the Silverhawks to Brimstar and Tallyhawk to the artificial sun. The other fighting Hawks had somehow taken away the limelight from Tally, and we are glad the OG is back. Tallyhawk helps Professor Power and Quicksilver escape the block of ice, and Quicksilver immediately springs into action. He calls Stargazer and asks him to patch up the call with Mirage. As Quicksilver informs the rest of his team about the theft, they realize that the mob might be making a weapon. Yes Man notices the Silverhawks entering, but the weapon is still not completely ready. Monstar transforms to his more menacing form and gets on the Skyrunner to face the Silverhawks. Monstar scatters the Silverhawks with the laser lance, and Skyrunner captures them. The laser lance's shot also causes friction with Mirage as it starts falling. The laser lance was going to be featured with Monstar No. 2 toys, which is the normal mode Monstar, but Kenner eventually cancelled its release. This goes with the plot, as we never see the normal version of Monstar wielding the weapon. Quicksilver and Tallyhawk arrive right on time to fight Monstar, and Hardware also finishes up his weapon, as he fits the Amber Amplifier like a battery matching the plus and minus points. Hardware suggests taking out Quicksilver, but as he switches on, the weapon explodes and Hardware is catapulted into space. Tallyhawk grabs the Amber Amplifier, and the other Silverhawks escape due to the commotion. They returned the Amber Amplifier to Professor Power, who set it by mismatching the plus and minus signs. As Steelheart points out the mistake, Professor Power confesses that he deliberately marks them wrong so that he is the only one to power the sun and still has a job. Now, we know why Hardware's hard work blew up, but at least let us appreciate his efforts.
I'll take that. And as for you, you two-timing.
The Savior Stone. Monstar's mobs are up to no good as they stop a mail ship headed for Earth. They send a last-moment parcel to the ship, which no doubt contains explosives. As the mail ship stops due to the blast, Buzzsaw, Windhammer and Mumbo Jumbo get in to collect all the mail for Monstar. It appears that Grodd, the informant, has told Monstar something valuable is being transported by the mail, and he wants to get paid for the information. Monstar becomes furious as he doesn't find anything of worth but comes across a stone that seems like a souvenir. Grodd tells him that the stone is important, and Monstar gives it to Hardware to see if it has any powers. When the result is negative, Monstar orders Yes Man to throw Grodd and the stone into space. Grodd grabs the stone and decides to sell it at Fence. As luck would have it, Seymour and Zeke are on their way, and once again, Zeke forces Seymour to give Grodd a ride. It's good to see Zeke is still trying to sell fish to the passengers, but God doesn't have time to humor him and points a laser gun at them. Meanwhile, Tallyhawk brought the information about the robbery to Stargazer, who called for an urgent briefing for the Silverhawks. Stargazer informs them that Earth's magnetic field is failing and will soon be out of orbit and explode. The stone being sent from Limbo is the only thing that can save and stabilize Earth. After the Silverhawks and Stargazer rush out, a pen transforms into Molecular and shares the vital information with Monstar. The Planet Master bullies Yes Man for throwing the stone out and demands it back. Do you think Monstar is a spoiled brat? Coming back to Grodd, the snitchy fellow rounds up Space Bandit's mob and tries to sell the stone to them, but they want to see the stone first. Space Bandit decides to sell the information to Monstar and informs about Grodd. Meanwhile, Seymour stops the Silverhawks on their way and gives them the needed information. However, the Silverhawks might be slightly late as Monstar arrives with Skyrunner at fence and takes away the stone from Grodd. The Silverhawks notice Skyrunner and launch an attack, while Stargazer worries about the Silverhawks as the light-year limit cuts all communication off. He sends Tallyhawk to find out more about the situation. Back near fence, Monstar's laser lance is able to injure 4 of the Silverhawks that get down to fight. You would be interested to know that Monstar had a small cameo in the Thundercats series in 2011 in the episode Legacy. Now, returning to where we were, aren't we forgetting an important member? Yes, Tallyhawk, the brave bird, ultimately knocks Monstar off his high seat and grabs onto the stone. Later, at Hawk Haven, Stargazer and the Silverhawks watch how the stone stabilizes the decaying magnetic field on Earth, bringing it back to normal. They finally pay their gratitude to Tallyhawk.
What's he up to now?
Smiley, the Silverhawks have become a great threat to illicit activities in Limbo, and Monstar travels to Starship Casino to meet with Pokerface. He throttles Pokerface for the slow business and lack of substantial profit, but Pokerface has a plan ready. He summons a coffin with what looks like a mummy, only to reveal it's a robot wrapped in bandages. Pokerface plans to use the robot Smiley to bring in customers for his illegal fighting matches. He arranges for a fight night and invites Monstar, who comes with Mumbo Jumbo. The increased number of visitors to Starship Casino alerts the Silverhawks, and Quicksilver sends Tallyhawk for a survey. Pokerface provides a glam introduction to Smiley and Mumbo Jumbo as they fight in the ring. Mumbo Jumbo is designed after a minotaur in Greek mythology, depicted by his bullhead feature. Mumbo Jumbo fights like a bull, but Pokerface controls Smiley with a remote as it emerges victorious. As Tallyhawk enters the arena, Pokerface makes Smiley shoot at him, but Tallyhawk escapes and sends footage to Hawk Haven. Stargazer goes through the database for criminals and identifies Smiley as a wrestling robot he arrested 150 years back. Smiley also quotes Muhammad Ali's "sting-like bee" remark when he was displayed to Monstar. Mumbo Jumbo's defeat unsettles Monstar, who calls it cheating and brings in Buzzsaw to fight. But once again, Smiley defeats the mob, and Monstar has enough. He demands to use Smiley as a part of his mob, and Pokerface agrees. But Monstar doesn't take Pokerface's guidance when using the remote, and his wrong use almost makes the robot haywire. Monstar ignores the issues and sends Smiley on his first mission with Buzzsaw and Mumbo Jumbo to rob Delare. Lord Cash notices the intruder and informs Hawk Haven, but Quicksilver is again running late in handling the situation. The mob robs all the valuables, and Smiley enters Lord Cash's office. Although Quicksilver tries to stop Roadstar, Smiley damages Sprinthawk. Quicksilver calls for help, which Copper Kid answers. However, by this time, Buzzsaw has sliced up Sprinthawk. Quicksilver jumps off the spacecraft and is captured by Smiley. However, Copper Kid shoots at Smiley and rescues Quicksilver. They get back to Hawk Haven to obtain a backup. The victorious mob returns to Brimstar, and an overconfident Monstar sends them to destroy Hawk Haven. At Hawk Haven, Quicksilver tells everyone about Smiley when they notice the mob approaching for an attack. Stargazer orders to activate the warp shield, which bounces off Buzzsaw and Mumbo Jumbo, but Smiley hangs on tight. As Monstar remotely controls Smiley, the robot repeatedly jumps on the shield and breaks it open. Smiley's laser attack further stops Mirage from taking flight, and now the Steel Twins giddy up to take down the robot. They use a random pattern of moves to confuse Smiley, and together they throw the fighting robot out into space. While the Steel Twins wish Stargazer would cut them some slack, they still have work to do, as Quicksilver got stuck inside Mirage, as Monstar finds new members and alliances to spread terror. Isn't it high time we get more good guys on the other side? Got Bucks. The constant attacks must have made Lord Cash weary, as he calls Hawk Haven with some exciting news. Lord Cash has employed a robot called Gotbucks as the newest security measure, the only one able to send the locker code to the artificial sun via a Zeta beam and receive the decoded code the next morning. Lord Cash requests Stargazer to send the Silverhawks for a mock attack to further test the system's efficacy. The Silverhawks take Mirage and attack Dalare, but its shielding system almost burns them up. The Silverhawks form the Hawk Cocoon for the first time to get past the force field, but the second step closes the shafts of entry, preventing the Silverhawks from breaking in. Satisfied with the outcome, the Silverhawks leave, and Lord Cash closes up for the day. After Lord Cash leaves, Pokerface and Yes Man appear. They blast off the side of the bank and kidnap Gotbucks. This doesn't make sense, right? The elaborate security measures to be thwarted by a mere B&E are outright comical and just prove Lord Cash is the stupidest bank manager ever. At Brimstar, Monstar, Pokerface and Yes Man fail to get the passcodes from Gotbucks, and Zero, the memory thief, offers to help. He retrieves all the memory and explains that Gotbucks must be at Dalare at 9 AM the next morning to receive the Zeta beam with the passcode. Tallyhawk spies and relays the information to Hawk Haven. The Silverhawks aim for Brimstar, but Monstar instructs Yes Man to switch on the Magna Trap, which not only electrocutes the Silverhawks, but also injures them. Quicksilver prohibits Bluegrass from helping with Mirage, while Steel Will's willpower temporarily helps them. They form the Hawk Cocoon again to escape the trap. This just proves, yet again, that criminals have better security measures than bankers, but at least Lord Cash has helped the Silverhawks with a simulation. Although Bluegrass treats the others, only Copper Kid is in the right state to stop the mob, who has now taken Gotbucks back to Dalare to receive the passcode, and the Kid must act fast. A brawl between Copper Kid and Pokerface doesn't bode well for Kid, as one of his electric skates gets destroyed, and he gets stuck. As Gotbucks receives the code and opens the lockers, the mob throws out Gotbucks from Dalare. However, Copper Kid is not the one to give up easily, as he sends the Space Racer to catch Gotbucks and attack the robbers. As Pokerface gets distracted while shooting at Space Racer, Copper Kid gets him from the back, forcing Zero and Pokerface to escape the planet. Although Kid uses the usual Silverhawks lasers, his main weapon is the two razor-edged discs that have repeatedly helped him cut through attacks. These frisbee-like weapons are special to only Copper Kid. Likewise, different Silverhawks members have different specializations, while Stargazer has the least improvement since he is older. While the villains discuss how to reveal the bad news to Monstar, the rest of the Silverhawks arrive in Mirage. They are surprised that Copper Kid busted the criminals alone. After they leave, Lord Cash calls Stargazer to say how glad he is to find that Gotbucks has cleaned the office and kept it safe. As Lord Cash calls employing Gotbucks his smartest move, Stargazer and Quicksilver decide to keep mum about Gotbucks' first day disaster. Melodia's Siren Song. The plot of this episode takes a unique approach, starting with Stargazer, Quicksilver and Hotwing watching Hotwing's report on a freighter heist. The story begins like a record on the screen, as we see a freighter ship carefully pass an asteroid. The mob has planned to rob the large space freighter shipping gold. Hardware, Melodia and Windhammer have taken their place in an asteroid, as Melodia sends a false distress signal to lure in the freighter. As space freighter Argo reaches the asteroid, Windhammer conjures a red dust tornado to pull in the ship. Before being hauled down, the drivers of the ship call Hawk Haven to inform them of the problem they encountered, and Stargazer sends Quicksilver along with Tallyhawk to help. The mob holds the driver of the ship hostage, but the gold is too much to carry in a single vehicle, so Hardware calls Monstar to send more space cars. Monstar refuses, ordering Hardware to catch more freighters. As Quicksilver and Tallyhawk arrive, the mob similarly lures them. While Hardware catches Tallyhawk in a net, they bind Quicksilver with ropes. A worried Stargazer sends Hotwing to find them, and he reaches there with his Fighting Hawk gyro. As Hotwing spies on the mob, Hardware makes Melodia and Windy load up all the gold. Gyro attacks Hardware, and his screams for help alert Melodia and Windy. While Hardware falls into a trench, Melodia shoots down Gyro, who explodes. That was unexpected and almost made us leave our seats. Hotwing also has a similar reaction, and he gets spotted. However, Hotwing subdues Melodia by disintegrating her sound smasher. He also bends Windy's tuning forks and sends him flying into space. In the first few episodes, Hotwing is voiced by Adolph Caesar, but after his death, the role is given to Doug Price. Adolph Caesar has also voiced Seymour, while Doug Price has voiced Windhammer and Molecular. As Hotwing gets inside Argo to save Quicksilver, he gets caught in ropes by Hardware, who seems to have climbed out of the trench. Hardware lies to Monstar that he has got more gold, but the Planet Master must come himself to retrieve it. Although mad at Hardware, Monstar transforms himself for the journey. Monstar's voice is quite raspy for no apparent reason in this one. Hotwing sneaks up and fires Hardware's roll-up bag, making him fly out. He then uses a Houdini trick to get out of the ropes, but frees Quicksilver with brute strength. As the freighter drivers start the engine, they find it stuck, and once again, Hotwing goes out to start it manually. As the freighter with Quicksilver leaves, Hotwing notices Monstar approaching in his Skyrunner. Monstar is late to the heist, but he won't let go of the mission. As Monstar and Hotwing face off each other, a screen malfunction at Hawk Haven disrupts the video. Hotwing refuses to divulge the secret of defeating Monstar, but we are glad that Hotwing has returned unscathed. Tallyhawk returns. It's time for Monstar to explore some other weaknesses of Silverhawks and Quicksilver. Monstar orders Hardware to obtain the control wristband worn by Quicksilver that helps him control Tallyhawk. Hardware relays the same orders to his subordinate, Molecular, who takes the form of Tallyhawk and snoops into Hawk Haven. As the real Tallyhawk is out for surveillance, Molecular swoops in, snatches away the wristband and takes it back to Brimstar. Assuming it is Tallyhawk, Quicksilver assures Stargazer that the bird will soon return, but the commander will not be satisfied until his recommended upgrades on Tallyhawk are made by the Steel Twins. In Brimstar, Hardware wears the wristband and controls Tallyhawk as he sends it back to cause destruction and mayhem at Hawk Haven. Tallyhawk first shoots at the side of the satellite and then enters Hawk Haven to destroy only the control panels. As Tallyhawk flies out, he is followed by Quicksilver in his Sprint Hawk. While the two mob members observe the events unfold, we see Quicksilver trying to stun Tallyhawk with laser light. Tallyhawk avoids the lasers, but causes significant damage to Sprint Hawk, forcing Quicksilver to eject himself into space. As Quicksilver calls Hawk Haven, his voice gets cut off before sending the location, and Stargazer sends the rest of the Silverhawks with their companion fighting birds. The show has somehow averted the unwilling robotization trope for the Silverhawks. But do you think the same goes for the birds? Their shifting loyalties due to a wristband do imply something terrible and dark. Tallyhawk attacks his old bud, while Stargazer follows up with the Silverhawks to see if Quicksilver is found. The Steel Twins have already repaired the console so that Stargazer can resume his duty. The Steel Twins find Quicksilver, and Steelheart grabs Quicksilver seconds before Tallyhawk. Steelwill also sends Razor and Stronghold to catch Tallyhawk. The trio and their birds take refuge in a neighbouring asteroid. And as Steelwill restrains Tallyhawk in armhold, the bird struggles. The twins use their psychic abilities to search Tallyhawk's mind and learn about the mob's involvement. However, Hardware and Molecular also join in, and Hardware ensures that Tallyhawk comes back to him. The other fighting Hawks do a Uno reverse as one snatches the wristband from Hardware and gives it back to Quicksilver. Once again, Quicksilver uses Tallyhawk to attack the mob, and although Hardware freezes Tallyhawk, he breaks through and damages Zuma, forcing the villains to retreat. However, the story is not over, as Hardware has to face the music. When he returns to Brimstar, Monstar is eager to hear some good news, but the utter failure drives Monstar mad as he almost rips apart Hardware. But he directs his anger to Quicksilver. Monstar transforms and takes Skyrunner to attack Quicksilver. Monstar is quite delusional to think the outcome would be something different. He tries his best to capture Quicksilver, but the twins intervene, and the warp shield of Hawk Haven allows the Silverhawks to pass through, but stop Monstar. Later, the The twins update Stargazer about a new feature in the control band that will ensure nobody else can control Tallyhawk when Quicksilver is not wearing the band. The twins also remind Stargazer to get a similar checkup since he is getting older.
I'll stop the clock!
Undercover, Monstar has a new plan for earning a few million Limbo bucks, which is to feed the Planet Eater with tankers so that the artificial sun loses power and the residents of Limbo have to come to him to get light. Monstar plans to use the living crust of Planet Eater as the only source of light. He sends Time Stopper and Buzzsaw on the mission as they hijack a tanker and send the Rhino pilot floating into space. The sequence features Buzzsaw's companion bird, Shreddator, for the first time as it shreds the vehicle from the tanks. The pilot arrives in Hawk Haven and tells Commander Stargazer about the heist, who shows him mugshots of the mob, helping him identify the main culprits. Stargazer instructs Quicksilver to ride with the pilot for the next oil delivery to the artificial sun. As expected, Time Stopper and Buzzsaw attack the tanker and almost damage it. Although Quicksilver shoots back, he is nearly insufficient to fight the two mobs attacking from opposing sides. Time Stopper freezes Quicksilver and the pilot in time as he sends the tanker directly to the Planet Eater. As Monstar becomes impatient, Yes Man notices the tanker approaching. Time Stopper and Buzzsaw also observe the tanker getting engulfed by the Planet Eater. As time unfreezes, Quicksilver and the pilot engage the thrusters to pull back, but to no avail. As described by Monstar, the Planet Eater resides under a pile of dead rockets and, in reality, is a breeder reactor that consumes materials to generate more energy. This concept is real as nuclear reactors use the same process and instead result in significant nuclear waste. In this case, the Planet Eater feeds off the oil, and Quicksilver instructs the pilot to let go of one of the tankers so that they can engage the hyperdrive mechanism. Once at Hawk Haven, the pilot implores the need to deliver the oil, and Stargazer calls Professor Power to find out if the delivery is urgent. Since the artificial sun is running on extremely low fuel, Stargazer sends the pilot and Quicksilver back for the delivery. The tanker's escape infuriates Monstar, who throttles Time Stopper and takes matters into his own hands. He transforms and goes after the tanker in Skyrunner. On the other hand, Professor Power panics as the artificial sun is on the verge of being shut down. Luckily, the tanker has almost reached the place, and Professor Power carefully guides the pilot with the docking system. The tanks fill up fast, but Monstar has also reached the artificial sun. As Skyrunner's tentacles pull at the tanks, Professor Power suggests the pilot and Quicksilver escape. He adds that the sun now has enough fuel to light up, and the sudden light burst from the artificial sun blinds and burns Monstar, who has no other option but to retreat. Monstar leaves with another false promise to exact revenge. With the tanker and engine destroyed, the pilot seeks a ride from Stargazer to return home. Quicksilver refuses since he has a report to submit, and the others are in deep space missions. Stargazer has to give a ride in his equalizer.
Wing, give it to me, or I'll grind you.
Eye of Infinity. The episode starts with Hotwing bringing a package for Commander Stargazer, who finds that it's a pack of cigars from his friends on Earth. Stargazer shoves it away as he doesn't smoke anymore, but while he doesn't notice, the cigars wobble a bit. Stargazer tells Hotwing about the Eye of Infinity stone being carried through Limbo. Stargazer shows a video explaining the stone's power to create a massive and destructive force field. As Stargazer and Hotwing leave the room, the cigars change into Molecular, who calls Monstar. As expected, Hardware and Windhammer attack the cargo freighter to steal the stone and take it to Brimstar. However, Hardware seeks some time before he can make the Eye of Infinity more usable. Monstar gives Hardware 24 hours and stops Yes Man from calling Molecular back. But the real high point of this episode is Monstar's killer one-liners, and Yes Man just plays along. Molecular again overhears Stargazer, ordering Hotwing to go to Brimstar to find the stone. The mob alerts his co-workers in Brimstar of the same. Hotwing hides his spacecraft, but gets attacked by Windhammer as he enters Brimstar. Hotwing then gets captured and imprisoned inside Monstar's castle. Meanwhile, Stargazer informs the Earth officials about Hotwing's mission and thanks them for the cigar. As the officer denies sending cigars, Stargazer tries to inspect them, and Molecular finally reveals himself. Molecular takes the form of a vulture to escape, and Stargazer tries to connect with the other Silverhawks, but nobody responds. The show has given military titles to all the Silverhawks, but it rarely coincides with real military regiments. For example, Bluegrass is a colonel, presumably for the Air Force, technically a higher position than a commander and lieutenant. But Bluegrass is a subordinate to Stargazer and Quicksilver. Hotwing is a squadron leader, but his position in the team is ambiguous. Hotwing uses his psychic lasers to break free of the chains and open the cell door, but Yes Man notices him and notifies Monstar. Meanwhile, Hardware is hard at work cracking open the Eye of Infinity when Hotwing sneaks into the lab and tries to retrieve the stone. Monstar calls Hardware and warns him about Hotwing escaping prison. Hardware notices Hotwing and they get into a battle. Hotwing conjures a glass shield that reflects Hardware's ice gun rays back to him and freezes Hardware. Monstar also transforms and goes to stop Hotwing from escaping, but Hotwing is agile and smart as he evades the attacks. As Hotwing and Monstar wrestle with a large boulder, the Silverhawk sends golden balls to switch on Sprinthawk and bring it back. Hotwing escapes with the stone on Hotwing, while the Skyrunner doesn't appear in time to help Monstar. With the Eye of Infinity back at Hawk Haven, Stargazer looks at it like a schoolgirl. He only wishes Hotwing could make Monstar disappear. A piece of the action. The episode opens with Seymour and Zeke dropping off Timestopper at Bedlama. Timestopper calls Monstar for the update, but when Timestopper has lost the ultimatum letter for Governor Zander, he angers Monstar, who attacks him with the Light Star via video call. Timestopper realizes that he has left the letter in Seymour's cab and rushes to find it. However, Monstar can't just sit back and order Melodia to find the letter and destroy the space hack. Monstar has some trust issues, and so he goes for transformation. Melodia attacks Seymour's cab, and as the space hack escapes Bedlama, it almost crashes into Mirage. Zeke notices the ultimatum letter and realizes why Melodia chases them. Bluegrass also notices Melodia and stops her on track. He then asks Seymour the reason for Melodia's attack. In the meantime, Monstar and Yes Man meet Governor Zander to give him an ultimatum. As Zander refuses to be a part of Monstar's criminal racket, Yes Man points out that Zander has 500 million limbo bucks in the treasury. Monstar threatens Zander to pay a 90% cut, or he will destroy the Lake Luster Dam and flood Bedlama. Monstar attacks Zander with the Light Star and leaves him unconscious. Bluegrass also shows the letter to Stargazer and Quicksilver as they learn about Monstar's plan to use Buzzsaw to break the dam. Bluegrass often speaks like Lion-O from Thundercats, as both are voiced by Larry Kenney, who also voices Pokerface and Timestopper. When Quicksilver reaches Bedlama, he finds Zander unconscious. Zander soon wakes up and shows what will happen to Bedlama if the dam breaks. Quicksilver immediately calls for backup from the Steel Twins and Slybird. He further asks Zander to seek one more hour from Monstar. Sky Shadow attacks Tallyhawk, and he falls right into the river while Buzzsaw keeps a watch. Monstar refuses to listen to Zander and orders his mob to break the dam. Mirage and Slybird arrive in the end moment as Slybird locates Monstar and his ride. While Timestopper and Yes Man hide, Monstar notices Sprinthawk and attacks. Quicksilver electrocutes Monstar in return, forcing him to revert to his original form. Now that they are also on the verge of drowning, the sly Monstar strikes a deal with Quicksilver. He promises to let Timestopper freeze time so that the Silverhawks can repair the dam in exchange for going free. The flood almost drowns Tallyhawk, but Timestopper freezes time as Tallyhawk looks in awe. The Steel Twins work their magic in stopping the flood, while Bluegrass rescues Tallyhawk. However, 1 limbo minute is too little for the Steel Twins to throw boulders to stop the water. Quicksilver encourages Timestopper to hold out as long as possible, but the boy finally falls unconscious and his timer malfunctions. As time starts again, the water from the dam hits the boulders, which withstands the pressure. With Bedlama saved, Governor Zander once again shares his gratitude, and Quicksilver keeps his word in letting Monstar and the mob go. However, Tallyhawk is injured, and now it rests up to the Steel Twins to get him back in action.
You don't understand, sir!
Flashback. This flashback-centric episode starts with Captain Flashback entering the Silverhawk Training Academy and meeting with an aged stargazer. Flashback has time-traveling capabilities, but his cybernetic upgrades are not yet completely evaluated. Flashback asks Stargazer how the first batch of Silverhawks met their end, and Stargazer shows him a file in a holographic chamber. Stargazer recounts the story of Monstar and his mob setting fire near Bedlama with a combustion crystal. The gigantic fireball created by the crystal is enough to destroy planets, and Monstar seeks to use it to make a deal with Governor Xander of Bedlama. When Lieutenant Quicksilver arrives with a fire extinguisher, Monstar and Hardware shoot at him. Quicksilver gets seriously injured but still manages an escape with the Sprint Hawk. He gets treated by the Steel Twins, but Quicksilver is not one to unnecessarily dodge the inevitable and takes out a charge detonation device that can help get rid of the detonation. The Steel Twins protested that placing the device would mean withstanding over 1,000,000 degrees of heat when the Silverhawks could withstand only 500,000 degrees. Flashback further notes that a fireball has a temperature of 8,000,000 degrees. As Quicksilver commands the Steel Twins not to follow, an impending doom could be noted for the skipper. It's no surprise when the Silverhawks defy Quicksilver's command and follow him in Mirage. Stargazer explains that the Silverhawks decided that if one fails to stop the fireball, the others will try. Eventually, all of them were combusted by the fire. Not able to accept the poor fate, Flashback activates his powers of time travel and arrives in Limbo just before the Silverhawks go for the suicide mission. As Stargazer looks at the hologram in amazement, he notices Flashback appearing beside Quicksilver. Flashback first knocks off Mirage from entering the fireball. He destroys all the control panels, ensuring Mirage cannot flow down or free Quicksilver. Although the Steel Twins and Bluegrass find Flashback's costume like the Silverhawks, they have doubts. Quicksilver, however, assumes it's molecular and refuses to listen to Flashback. We can't blame Quicksilver for this distrust of strangers, but as he continues to fight and shove Flashback away, the time traveler resorts to his ultimate move and snatches the device as he heads onto the fire. Meanwhile, Monstar forces Governor Xander to sign the treaty as the fireball in space makes the air unbreathable. Monstar asks to increase the temperature of the combustion crystal to the boiling point, and as it reaches 8,000,000 degrees, Flashback notes that it's his melting point. He still manages to place the detonator, but starts returning in time. Ultimately, using the Time Warp ability enables Flashback to stall time and switch on the device. Flashback is often considered a human hybrid, or not a human, due to his unusual eyes, and his entire face is never revealed in the show. As the fireball goes poof, the shock knocks down Monstar and Hardware, and Xander commands his troops to arrest them. But the chains are not enough to keep them locked up as they break free and escape. As Flashback returns in future, a younger-looking Quicksilver and normal-age Stargazer meets and greets him. Although Quicksilver finds Flashback oddly familiar, the time traveler lies. Superbirds. An intergalactic conference in Limbo needs Silverhawks to be a part of security measures, and Commander Stargazer sends the Steel Twins and Copper Kid. In Brimstar, Monstar calls the mob for a meeting and appoints Hardware to build a supersized Sky Shadow to take down the Silverhawks. After all this time, this has to be the least cost-effective venture we've seen. Hardware seeks time to procure the raw materials, and the deliveries report to Stargazer. Quicksilver sends Tallyhawk for a reconnaissance, while Super Sky Shadow is almost done. Thanks to the bird's shriek, Hardware notices it and gets on Super Sky Shadow to attack. Tallyhawk sends live footage to Hawk Haven, but doesn't prove successful in the combat. An overly excited Hardware shares with Monstar how he singed Tallyhawk's talons, but Monstar would like to try it out first. Since Quicksilver and Bluegrass have also arrived, a raging battle ensues between the Silverhawks and Monstar riding the Super Sky Shadow. The metallic mob bird damages Mirage, but doesn't dampen the spirit of the Silverhawks, who aim for retaliation. As part of the Mirage goes down, Quicksilver jumps off the spacecraft, but Bluegrass pulls him up with a lasso before Sky Shadow can catch him. Super Sky Shadow also knocks on the cockpit, making Bluegrass topple over. Sky Shadow catches him, and Monstar takes Bluegrass to Brimstar. Monstar leaves immediately to attack Hawk Haven, but Bluegrass successfully evades Hardware and Melodia. He finds an old abandoned car in the junkyard and jump-starts it to escape the planet. On the other hand, an agitated Quicksilver returns in Seymour's cab and reports to Stargazer, who has a brilliant plan. Quicksilver opens a Silverhawk tab for Seymour's space hack. It's about time, and the mob should probably do the same. Stargazer calls Professor Power and inquires about the Amber Amplifier. He asks if the amplifier could turn Tallyhawk into a giant, stronger, bird-like sky shadow. Stargazer sends Quicksilver to help Professor Power with the tasks, and once they are done, Quicksilver rides on Super Tallyhawk for Hawk Haven. The place in question is currently attacked by Super Sky Shadow and Monstar. Stargazer confirms with Professor Power if the experiment has been successful. Otherwise, it will mean the end of the Silverhawks. This episode has a sort of sequel as the Super Sky Shadow returns in an episode called The Harder They Fall. The title probably comes from the proverb, "The bigger they are, the harder they fall." In this case, no such thing happens as Sky Shadow breaks into Stargazer's office and the commander has to use the solar energy bazooka to fend the bird off. Soon, Quicksilver and Super Tallyhawk join in and attack back, but Sky Shadow's lasers blind Tallyhawk for a while as he crashes into Hawk Haven. However, Tallyhawk recovers quickly, and even Bluegrass appears with his space car. The dual attack from Bluegrass and Tallyhawk damages Sky Shadow, forcing Monstar to retreat. The Steel Twins return from the boring Intergalactic Council meeting and are surprised when Quicksilver comments that Tallyhawk is back to normal. The episode ends with Bluegrass, Quicksilver and Stargazer sharing inside jokes while others look confused.
Looks like we got it.
The Blue Door. Monstar has again called for a meeting and the entire mob has been assembled, so matters are serious. Monstar's latest plan involves killing Stargazer. He instructs Molecular to morph into the transformed Monstar and takes Skyrunner to attack Dolare. Monstar also orders the others to follow Molecular while he goes to Hawk Haven with Hardware to kill Stargazer. As Monstar transforms, the others head for Dolare and Slybird takes pictures. Things go according to plan as Stargazer sends the Silverhawks to stop the mob while the real Monstar arrives at the back of Hawk Haven. Hardware uses acidic gas to melt through the rock, and Monstar grabs Hardware as they enter Hawk Haven. On the other hand, the Silverhawks feel uneasy as they find Dolare eerily quiet. They soon spot the mob, who attacks Mirage, and the Steel Twins are first to release from the spacecraft. It doesn't bode well for Quicksilver and Copper Kid, whose side of the Mirage gets stuck, and they fail to come out in time. Back in Hawk Haven, Monstar and Hardware make their way to the power room, but Stargazers gets an alert and looks through the security cameras. He spots the villains and understands their plan. Meanwhile, the Mirage goes down, and the mob surrounds them. The Steel Twins catch Monstar to give Mirage an advantage, whereas Copper Kid uses another strategy as he breaks through the glass and uses his discs to level up the Mirage. Molecular reveals himself and transforms into a rocket to escape the clutches of the Steel Twins, who now rush to Mirage to help the others. With the mob gone, the team works together for the repairs, but it takes time as they worry about Commander Stargazer. Do you think Silverhawks have picked up the storytelling with the second half? Thundercats Roar often had characters watching Silverhawks and complaining it was terrible and boring. What are your thoughts? At Hawk Haven, Stargazer also devises a plan to get rid of Monstar, but he makes a squeaky sound as he runs, and a bolt from his cybernetic legs falls into the ground. Stargazer has covered the real signs with false ones to misdirect Monstar, but he gets spotted by Monstar and Hardware. Hardware sends a ricochet rocket after Stargazer, and although the commander escapes it, the rocket also backfires and almost hits Monstar and Hardware. Not wanting to waste more time, Monstar freezes Stargazer with his light star energy and follows the signs to break into the power room. Stargazer has marked an escape hatch as the power room, leading to the villains being deep spaced. The Silverhawks also return in time to see Hardware and his boss fly by. They help remove the spell from Stargazer, who shares the anecdote of his confrontation with the rest of the team, proving why he is the commander.
Buddy, why you?
the Star of Bedlama. All the training days have finally paid off as Bluegrass sends Copper Kid out on Mirage with the other Silverhawks. However, there is no time to relax as Stargazer calls him with information on a secret package delivery from Earth to the Bedlama Museum that Bluegrass must look after. Stargazer explains that the package contains a diamond called Star of Bedlama that was stolen from the planet a century ago and is worth $1 million limbo dollars. It is recovered on Earth and sent by a secret and special courier that even Stargazer is unaware of. However, familiar music tells us that Seymour is the special courier, and we see him flying his space hack and juggling with the parcel. With Zeke absent, Seymour breaks the fourth wall and informs us that he has been paid double for the delivery. Although the arrangement was done not to attract the mob's attention, the gambit doesn't pay off as Seymour gets ambushed by the outlaws from Fence. Seymour gives a fight, but the outlaws still rob his cash box, and Seymour directly goes to Hawk Haven to inform, shocking poor Stargazer. The outlaws sell the diamond to Pokerface, and he promises to pay later. However, Pokerface considers the diamond his ticket to escape from Limbo and start afresh, or build his own mob elsewhere. He connivingly calls Stargazer and offers to meet at Sector 7 inside an abandoned freighter to exchange the stone for his immunity from the space cops. Stargazer agrees to the conditions of letting him go free and sends Bluegrass to get the stone. Pokerface then calls Monstar and informs them that Bluegrass will be alone in Sector 7, and Monstar orders Melodia to end Bluegrass. Bluegrass arrives at the abandoned freighter ship and waits for Pokerface, while Melodia, Buzzsaw, and Mumbo Jumbo also arrive and wait to kill him at first sight. Bluegrass notices them and uses a broken-down robot to bait the mob. Bluegrass wins the showdown with the mob and leaves in Sprinthawk, but a Sky Shadow sends footage to Brimstar. Yes Man receives the transmission and hears Bluegrass talking about the diamond being held by Pokerface. He shows it to Monstar, who now wants to get his payback from Pokerface for double-crossing him. Monstar transforms himself and heads towards Starship Casino. Tallyhawk notices him and sends the information to Stargazer. The commander radios Quicksilver, but they are still far from the casino. Even though it's an underrated show, Tom Hanks is shown wearing Silverhawks underoos in the movie Big, a fantasy comedy released in 1988. However, the Silverhawks are not always the only hero in this series. Bluegrass arrives at Starship Casino and snatches the diamond from Pokerface, but Monstar also arrives. Although Bluegrass breaks Monstar's weapon, Monstar stuns Bluegrass and takes him. Pokerface emerges as the winner as he finds the diamond in Bluegrass's cowboy hat. However, the Silverhawks arrive, and they not only defeat Monstar, but also rescue Bluegrass. Pokerface tries to flee Limbo from a bus stop, but he gets cornered by the outlaws. Seymour also arrives, captures all of them with his cab's newest feature, and takes them to Hawk Haven. Stargazer appreciates Seymour for getting back the diamond. Pokerface argues that his casino is outside the jurisdiction, and Stargazer releases him, but he reminds Pokerface about Monstar.
Long time for this. The destruction of...
The Illusionist. If the name gives you any indication, it's one of those episodes that focus on Hotwing. While Hotwing returns to base on Seymour's space hack, they talk about closing the latest case on the mob. Sky Shadow reports it to Brimstar, and Monstar wants revenge for ruining another of his gambling acts. Monstar transforms and heads out on Skyrunner to attack the space hack. Hotwing fights back, but the Lightstar attack makes him fall under Monstar's control of his mind. Since Hotwing has taken down the mob independently, Monstar considers him capable of finishing the Silverhawks. Hotwing returns to Hawk Haven and seeks a day off to entertain the other Silverhawks with magic tricks. Stargazer begrudgingly agrees, while Monstar and Yes Man keep a watch on Brimstar. For the first trick, Hotwing uses a vanishing cabinet to separate Steel Will's body into different cabinets. But for the last one, Hotwing goes all out. He restrains the unsuspecting Silverhawks in chains and drops them in a large, transparent tank filled with water. As Hotwing mentions, this trick is a tribute to the great Harry Houdini, who was not only an illusionist, but also a great escape artist. However, putting Copper Kid in danger might be stretching it too far. With the Silverhawks struggling underwater, Hotwing approaches Stargazer and attacks from behind. Stargazer pretends to be knocked out as he picks up a gun and fights back the illusionist. The Steel Twins telepathically communicate and use their brain power to call in their Fighting Hawks, Razor and Stronghold. The Fighting Hawks help the twins and the others escape the water tank. Copper Kid goes to warn the commander but bears witness to the ongoing fight. Stargazer threatens to court-martial Hotwing, while Copper Kid attacks Hotwing with his razor discs, but Hotwing proves triumphant. He goes to another chamber and confronts Quicksilver. Quicksilver notices Hotwing's eye glow red and realizes that Hotwing is under Monstar's control. Monstar has again transformed himself as he heads out to finally crush the Silverhawks. Something worth mentioning here is that Monstar randomly transitions between his normal and mega form within short periods. This could be an animation error, or because there's no reason for Monstar to stay in his upgraded form when he is in Brimstar. Hotwing also hangs the Steel Twins in the air, and when Sideman binds Hotwing with musical notes, the illusionist reverses the attacks and binds Bluegrass. Monstar now appears in Hawk Haven and decides to attack Hotwing so that all the Silverhawks are out of the picture. It massively backfires as the Lightstar manipulation on Hotwing gets diffused by the attack. Hotwing throws Monstar into deep space, but he comes back. This time, Hotwing makes Monstar topple over Skyrunner and the squid runs away. The day is saved, and even though Stargazer might be a little mad at Hotwing, we are sure there are no grounds for a court-martial.
And it's so long to the bounty hunter.
The bounty hunter returns. Despite the previous episode's events, Hotwing is back in business and delivers paperwork on cases to Stargazer. Hotwing asks if Monstar and his mob are the only major threats Stargazer has had to fight over the years. Stargazer then tells him about the bounty hunter, the energy-sucking, monstrous figure. The video footage has scenes from the bounty hunter, showing how the Silverhawks got electrically stuck as pinboards, and Stargazer had to take down Bounty Hunter with a bazooka. As he finishes the story, we are taken to Penal Planet 10, where one of the guards tells another about Bounty Hunter and how Stargazer caught him. The commander's name wakes Bounty Hunter from his thoughts, and he breaks out of the prison and takes refuge in his home, the Hanging Rock. Tallyhawk transmits the message about Bounty Hunter's movement, and the Bounty Hunter uses it to challenge Stargazer directly. Once again, Stargazer cannot find his bazooka in time, but Hotwing helps him, and the commander rushes alone in the Equalizer. In Hanging Rock, the bounty hunter lures Stargazer into a cave, and as the other Silverhawks watch from Hawk Haven, the Steel Twins realize that the solar bazooka won't work in the dark. The bounty hunter saps all the energy from Stargazer to attack the Silverhawks. The conceited megalomaniac is well aware that he is still being watched, and he shows the Silverhawks how he has pinned Stargazer to one of the 6 electric racks. The Silverhawks take the Mirage to travel to Hanging Rock, and Hotwing takes Sprint Hawk. However, upon reaching the Hanging Rock, they notice only 5 more electric racks left, which means Bounty Hunter is still unaware of Hotwing, and that's a great advantage. This is a sequel to the previous Bounty Hunter-focused episode, but it is also the only one not to feature Monstar and his mob. Bluegrass is the first to get attacked, and as the electric racks pull at him, Copper Kid comes to his rescue. When the Bounty Hunter charges at them, even Tallyhawk arrives to sever the electric connection, but all 3 get stuck to the racks, making Bounty Hunter stronger. Quicksilver and the Steel Twins decide to distract the Bounty Hunter, while Hotwing looks for the bazooka. However, the Steel Twins plan to use brute strength and play football with the Bounty Hunter backfires, and they get stuck. A similar fate awaits Quicksilver as he faces off against the bullish creature. Although Quicksilver wins the first round by dropping rubble on Bounty Hunter, the villain escapes and subdues him. Meanwhile, Hotwing gets confused inside the maze-like cave and uses his magical tricks to locate the bazooka. Hotwing finally reveals himself as he comes behind the Bounty Hunter. He uses the handkerchief trick to make a grand reveal of the bazooka and finally hits Bounty Hunter in the chest. As the Bounty Hunter gets overpowered, the electric racks lose their charge, and the Silverhawks are free. Stargazer mentions that they must return Bounty Hunter to a stronger prison cell before returning to Hawk Haven. Do you think Bounty Hunter is way more intimidating and formidable than Monstar? The chase. Lord Cash meets with Stargazer and hands him a key to a new lock in Dolare that Stargazer must keep safe from the mob. Stargazer must not have learned his lesson, as he calls Hawk Haven the safest place in Limbo. To prove him wrong, a pencil transforms into Molecular, who travels back to Brimstar and informs Monstar. Upon Monstar's order, Molecular decides to transform into someone the Silverhawks will trust. Since options are very few, it's not hard to guess when Molecular and his bird Volture take a ride in Seymour's cab. Molecular asks Seymour and Zeke to stop at an asteroid and throws them out. Molecular and Volture then transform into Seymour and Zeke as they head towards Hawk Haven. As Seymour, Molecular asks for payment for his previous rides, Stargazer gets engrossed in looking for his vouchers. Molecular steals the key and moves aside, while the real Seymour and Zeke are noticed by Tallyhawk, who sends the images to Stargazer. Realizing what has transpired, Stargazer tries to catch the rogues, but Molecular and his bird turn into missiles and escape. Stargazer calls the Silverhawks and orders them to look into the matter. Monstar also sends Melodia, Yes Man, and Hardware to stop Mirage. As the two groups engage in warfare, Steel-Will escapes and follows Molecular and Voltura as they head towards Automata. Steel-Will and Stronghold look for Molecular, who is disguised as Monotone. Molecular misdirects Steel-Will and drops stalactites on him, and Stronghold has to bring him out of the rubble. Elsewhere, Melodia and Copper Kid fight, but she gets defeated by the Kid. Do you know some fans think Melodia is uncannily similar to Lady Gaga? Did you notice any resemblance? Steelheart and Quicksilver also make Hardware crash onto a wall, while Copper Kid uses his razor discs to create a net-deflecting Molecular and Volt Yuri from their path. The Shapeshifter and his bird find a tanker heading for the artificial sun and hijack it. However, the pilot relays the news to Stargazer, who sends it to Steel-Will. A clueless Professor Power asks the tanker why it's off the path and helps it with the docking. But Steel-Will arrives and wants to search the tanker. Since Professor Power is adamant about not disrupting the process, Steel-Will wonders if he is Molecular and arrests him. Soon, an alarm indicates a malfunction, and Steel-Will rushes to close an oil spill before there's any explosion. Molecular finally reveals himself and uses Molecutar to set the hatch on fire. But again, Stronghold helps Steel-Will. Later, Steel-Will apologizes to Professor Power for distrusting him, and Professor Power suggests he should beat Molecular in his own game. Steel-Will disguises himself as Space Bandit and gets the key from Molecular in Fence. Steel-Will reveals himself instead of paying up, and Molecular tries to catch him. Although Steel-Will handcuffs Molecular, he again transforms into a missile and escapes. Steel-Will teases Stargazer by disguising as Space Bandit and finally delivers the key. But just as Stargazer throws a pencil away, we are sure he now has paranoia. Switch. This story is a lot about classic role reversal, and before we get on to that, let's see what happened to cause the switch. Steel twins discover a cosmic hurricane headed for Limbo, and Stargazer asks them to follow up. The twins explain that the cosmic storm has properties that can change anybody in their path from good to bad, and vice versa. Unfortunately, Quicksilver and Tallyhawk are on the path and pulled in by the storm. Bluegrass and the Steel twins take Mirage to rescue Sprinthawk, and thanks to Tallyhawk's effort, they almost pull off the mission, but the rope gives away and all of them get pulled into the storm. The Silverhawks emerge from the storm as wicked, with dark shadows around their eyes. They ignore Stargazer's commands, calling him names, but he realizes the storm is to blame. The Silverhawks decide to raid Dolare while the hurricane changes its path and heads for Brimstar. The storm changes Monstar, Hardware and Yes Man similarly as they become polite to each other. Can you ever imagine Monstar apologizing for yelling? This should be recorded in Limbo history books. In Dolare, Lord Cash deactivates the force field for the Silverhawks, but they break into his office and loot all the money, leaving him tied up. At the same time, Lord Cash informs Stargazer and the Silverhawks head to Fence, where they create a mess at Cine Star Diner. You might have noticed a no alcohol sign in the Outlaw Bar. While this kind of defeats the idea of the bar, the sign was up due to the American censorship in that era, which strictly prohibited the depiction of smoking and drinking in cartoons. While Silverhawks continues destroying the diner, Monstar and Melodia approach and ask them to stop. The Silverhawks fight back, forcing Melodia to attack, and it seems the entire mob has turned good due to the cosmic storm, as Time Stopper also freezes them. The mob takes Silverhawks to Penal Planet for their crimes. However, with time, the influence of the storm has worn off, and the Silverhawks plead with Warden Lockup to release them. Stargazer also explains everything and requests a release, but the Warden won't listen. Stargazer indirectly instructs Copper Kid to take Mayday and jam the radar to break out the Silverhawks. The mob is also frustrated that they returned all the money and gold to Dolare. But with the Silverhawks behind bars, they plan to take Limbo. Monstar orders them to take down Copper Kid first. The kid in question breaks into the Penal Planet and breaks out his friends. They escape on Space Racer and Mirage, while Monstar and his mob attack Hawk Haven. As Skyrunner jams the antennae, Stargazer has difficulty connecting to the Silverhawks. He still manages to defeat the mob with the laser guns. However, Monstar's squid gets hold of Stargazer, and Silverhawks arrive to save him. Defeating the mob suspends Silverhawks' jail term, but the law is fair for all, and they have 200 hours of community service to look out for. Junkyard Dog. A tense environment starts the story as Commander Stargazer inquires about the delivery of a secret item. Hotwing suggests a course of action, but gets brutally shut down by Stargazer, and he becomes suspicious when Steelheart avoids the topic. The mood changes when the garbage collector, Dirty Larry, approaches Hawk Haven with his garbage truck. Dirty Larry has a friendly exchange with Steelheart and moves away at full speed, which dispenses some garbage into the air. Steelheart tells Hotwing that she and her brother helped Dirty Larry with the engine. Soon, the special delivery ship arrives, but Dirty Larry interrupts him to collect garbage before he can deliver the package to Stargazer. But once Dirty Larry enters the ship, he reveals himself to be Molecular in disguise, and also calls Volt Ure. As the bird deep spaces, the pilot, Molecular, looks for the package and finally finds the Total Mobility System case, without which Stargazer won't survive in Limbo for more than a day. It appears the mob has moles even on Earth to collect such confidential information. On the other hand, the garbage truck had jammed the delivery ship's connection with Hawk Haven, and Hotwing took Flashback for inspection. Molecular updates Monstar about the operation, and apparently, Yes Man was left in the dark. He insists that Monstar shares the secret with his secretary, and Monstar explains that stealing the case would mean the death of Stargazer. Meanwhile, Hotwing and Flashback are astounded to see the empty delivery truck, and Hotwing demands that Steelheart come clear. This episode features Hotwing's Fighting Hawk, Gyro, and Flashback's Fighting Hawk, Backlash. Although Gyro was supposedly killed in a previous episode, this could be another bird that got the same cybernetic upgrade. After they return to Hawk Haven, Steelheart explains that Stargazer has been in Limbo for several years, try around 500 years. So, there has been some wear and tear, and total mobility control is the only thing that can make him live longer. As Tallyhawk watches Stargazer, Hotwing sends Gyro, Backlash and Slybird to look for Dirty Larry. Since there is no time to get the delivery from Earth again, Hotwing takes Flashback to find Dirty Larry. They arrive at Asteroid Trash and get attacked by Dirty Larry's robotic dog, Junk. Dirty Larry also appears, but the dog is too ferocious and attacks his master. Dirty Larry confines the dog and speaks to the Silverhawks. He informs that he only collected some junk from the special delivery ship pilot. But wait, when did that happen? Dirty Larry calls Brimstar to buy junk and soon reveals that he is Molecular. He updates Monstar about the Silverhawks' visit. The Silverhawks are still unaware of Molecular's involvement, so it was an easy heist to pull. A dejected Hotwing and Flashback return to Hawk Haven and tell the Steel Twins about junk attacking Dirty Larry. They realise that it is Molecular and go back to Asteroid Trash. Molecular calls for Volt Ure to attack, but Hotwing spins very fast, and the electric rays from Volt Ure fire back. It also opens the door to the cabin where Junk is locked. Junk attacks Molecular as he tries to escape with the case. The Silverhawk duo retrieves the case and travels back, leaving Molecular to his fate. Stargazer is saved in time and apologises for not sharing the problem with his subordinates and not getting their help. But Steelheart reminds him that to survive in Limbo, they must stick together. Window in time. It's time to go back to the past as Hardware comes across a window in time as he makes his way back to Brimstar after looting a few Bedlamians. Monstar becomes restless as Hardware is late with the cut money and berates him as soon as he lands on Brimstar. Hardware shares that he has found a way to return to when the Silverhawks first left for Limbo from Earth. Monstar demands that Hardware goes to the past and sabotages the Silverhawks' journey to ensure a better future for the mob. As Slybird makes a round, he notices Hardware making his journey to the past with the help of the Prowler. When Stargazer and Flashback watch the report, Flashback explains that the window in time is an intergalactic time warp and he has a way to stop Hardware. Flashback introduces Stargazer to an upgraded Backlash that can time travel and locate people like a space bloodhound. Initially, this episode was supposed to introduce Backlash, but as it was introduced in the previous one, it is assumed that the upgrades were made later, or that Stargazer was unaware of Backlash being on the last mission. That is only possible if Hotwing or Flashback haven't submitted a full report in time. Backlash smells a laser gun and tracks Hardware, with Flashback following on Sprinthawk. They find the time warp and enter it. Meanwhile, Hardware lands on Earth just outside the Silverhawks headquarters as the Silverhawks get acquainted with each other before boarding the Mirage. Copper Kid and Steelheart help Bluegrass set up Hotlicks and the console. Hardware also places a bomb to ensure they do not make the flight, but Flashback and Backlash also arrive and find the bomb. Hardware seems unaware that Flashback is the newest addition to the Silverhawks and threatens him with a gun, but Flashback rips off the bomb and throws it to Hardware, who immediately defuses it. Hardware then steals the control of a rocket and sends it after Flashback to keep him occupied. Hardware sneakily hitches a ride as the Mirage takes off and enters the cockpit after putting Bluegrass to sleep with a knockout gas. Hardware sets the coordinates for the spacecraft to the light-year limit so that the novice Silverhawks face a difficult time. Back on Earth, Flashback takes Backlash's help to get rid of the rocket and time travels to rescue the Silverhawks team headed for Limbo. Flashback notices Hardware's roll-up bag and asks Backlash to throw him off the ship, but Hardware is persistent. Flashback then forcefully throws Hardware into space and slaps Bluegrass to wake him up. Flashback and Backlash get away before Bluegrass is completely awake, saving us some time travel butterfly effect. As the light year limit did not cause much turbulence, the team finally reached Hawk Haven, and we saw some reused footage from the first episode. As Flashback and Stargazer finish watching the report, Stargazer asks what happened to the time window. Flashback recollects how Hardware used the Prowler to get back on Earth and go through the time window to the present. Although Backlash and Flashback followed Hardware to the present time in Limbo, destroying the time window was more important than pursuing Hardware. With another chance to catch the rogue gone, it appears the Silverhawks will have to face more such crises in the future.
Melodia! Get in there!
Gang War Part 1. The reign of Monstar is bearing heavy on the mob. Monstar is ripping off the Starship Casino, leaving Pokerface and Melodia with nothing. They plan to terrorize Monstar with remote-controlled cars and steal the money back. Tallyhawk sends a report on the black cars attacking Monstar and then going away, which makes Quicksilver want to investigate. But Stargazer stops him. The duo gets into an argument as Quicksilver presents that law and order protect everybody, while Stargazer points out that if anybody is taking shots at Monstar, it's beneficial for all. While we see Stargazer's point, Quicksilver must begrudgingly follow the commander's order and keep patrolling. Melodia and Pokerface's plan has worked, as a cowardly Monstar sends Hardware and Buzzsaw to get the next delivery of the cut money when they are ambushed by the black cars. They are tied to a cord and thrown deep into space by one of the remote-controlled cars, while the other steals all the money. However, things are about to get interesting as the Silverhawks notice Hardware and Buzzsaw drifting in space towards the dangerous part of the light year limit. Quicksilver volunteers to go ahead and rescue the two criminals, but the rope tying him to the Mirage snaps, He still finds the rogues, but the idiotic buzzsaw attacks him and Hardware has to intervene. The other Silverhawks also get worried about their skipper, and Bluegrass uses all his piloting skills to enter the light year limit and rescue Quicksilver. The Silverhawks decide to drop off the criminals at Penal Planet, making Hardware regret his decision. On the other hand, Melodia goes to Monstar to report the robbery, and Monstar questions her, along with Windhammer and Yes Man, about the betrayal. When Monstar threatens to use the deadly lie detector, Melodia runs away, and the others chase after her. The others inform Monstar that she is heading for the casino and making it clear that Pokerface is involved. Monstar takes to the transformation chamber, and a scene we are now extremely familiar with. However, it was one of the most critical animations of the entire series, as the makers had to use advanced effects for the transformation sequence that could rival even the most popular cartoons of the 80s. As Monstar approaches Starship Casino, Melodia calls the Silverhawks for help. Bluegrass is undoubtedly shocked, but they arrive right after Skyrunner crushes the two robotic metallic cars. A battle of sorts takes place between Monstar and the Silverhawks, forcing the Planet Master to retreat, but he swears revenge on the double-crossers. Melodia plans to beg Monstar to avoid death and punishment, which they must be used to by now, but Pokerface disagrees. With no clear cliffhanger, it would be interesting to see their next course of action. Gang War Part 2. The events from the previous episode have dented Monstar's mob action, as he, along with Yes Man and Mumbo Jumbo, collects junk to rebuild the Sky Chomper. Revenge can wait, but Monstar's priority is to break out Hardware and Buzzsaw from the Penal Planet. Hardware and Buzzsaw are also getting anxious in confinement, while the crime rate has significantly dropped in Limbo, making Stargazer uneasy. He sends Tallyhawk to patrol Penal Planet and Slybird to spy on Brimstar. However, Yes Man notices Slybird's shadow, and Mumbo Jumbo sends his Fighting Hawk, Airshock, to take the Spyhawk down. Slybird going off the radar worries Stargazer, but he refuses to let Quicksilver go to Brimstar for reconnaissance, as it could brew trouble. Soon, the Sky Chomper is finished, and Monstar forces Yes Man to fly the spacecraft. Yes Man is underconfident about flying such a large ship, but doesn't have an option. He almost breaks Monstar's castle during takeoff, possibly making Monstar regret his decisions. However, considering his cowardly and lazy nature, not to mention the whole ordeal of going through transformation for each trip, we understand Monstar's decision. As the serpent-shaped Sky Chomper heads for Penal Planet, Stargazer alerts the guards. However, misfortunes are in galore as the Mirage is out of commission and it's too late for the Silverhawks to reach Penal Planet. The Sky Chomper chomps off a side of the Penal Planet to rescue the imprisoned mobs, and then they call Monstar. The Planet Master asks to pick him up as they will directly attack Hawk Haven. Hardware has further ensured that Hawk Haven cannot track the Sky Chomper and sees it as an old freighter until it's too late to switch on the lasers. By now, the Mirage has been repaired, but the Silverhawks worry as they can no longer detect the Sky Chomper. Steelheart detects the large freighter on her computer, but she switches on the laser as a safety measure. However, it's not enough, as the Sky Chomper comes out of nowhere, biting off a side of Hawk Haven and knocking it slightly out of orbit. The series used a higher frame rate in the space battles, transformation scenes, and character animations, making them detailed compared to its contemporary cartoons. For example, the given sequence is exquisitely presented with the serpentine Sky Chomper being attacked by the lasers, which damages its controls. As usual, Monstar blames Hardware for the Sky Chomper failing, as he conveniently forgets that Hardware was in Penal Planet. Monstar threatens Hardware to rectify the situation. Perhaps it would have fared better if Hardware sided with Pokerface and Melodia. Stargazer also sends out Bluegrass and Copper Kid in the Mirage, but even with smart maneuvers and using balloons to escape, the Sky Chomper devours Mirage. Bluegrass destroys the blades before Mirage, and an unconscious Copper Kid is ripped to shreds. Monstar further appears and subdues Bluegrass, who gets tied up and held inside Mirage. Copper Kid wakes up just as Hardware finishes placing an explosive on Mirage. The Kid sneakily removes the explosives and throws them to the floor as he flies out of the spacecraft containing Bluegrass. When the timer is over, Hardware tries to blow off Mirage, but the Sky Chomper blows up instead. Monstar leaves, swearing revenge while the Mirage patches up with Hawk Haven. For the first time in a long time, Bluegrass cannot do a wisecrack since he is still tied up.
Let's get going.
Anything you say.
Sneak Attack Part 1. This is the third and last two-part episode, which starts off with Stargazer sending Quicksilver and Hotwing to arrest Monstar from Brimstar. Stargazer hands the Silverhawk duos a spray developed by the Steel Twins that can make them invisible. The duo lands in Brimstar and waits for the right time for the sneak attack. Monstar notices a space freighter in the middle of the night and wakes Hardware, ordering him to raid the ship. Meanwhile, Stargazer appoints Seymour to lift the Silverhawks and Monstar from Brimstar to Penal Planet. Initially, Seymour refuses to be requisitioned, but Stargazer reminds him that the Steel Twins have helped him keep his space hack flying. Sky Shadow sends information to Brimstar about Seymour leaving Hawk Haven, and Monstar orders Sky Shadow to keep a watch. As Hardware leaves, the Silverhawks use the spray to enter Monstar's castle without being detected. Once inside, Gyro shoots at Monstar, enabling the Silverhawks to arrest the Planet Master. However, Monstar calls in Mumbo Jumbo and Yes Man to stop the space cops. Monstar also orders Yes Man to start the switch on the transformation chamber. However, the Silverhawks get rid of them with some wit and tricks, and once again arrest Monstar. Seymour and Zeke arrive right on time, but are surprised that Monstar is one of the passengers. Once Seymour tries to take off the plane, Mumbo Jumbo appears and pulls at the space hack. As he continuously hits on the cab, Quicksilver gets rid of him. While on their way, Sky Shadow also attacks the space hack, trying to rescue Monstar, but Hotwing fights it off. Hotwing conjures a magical top hat that sucks in the Sky Shadow, and they once again head for the Penal Planet. Sky Shadow escapes the hat and goes to the fence at the Cine Star Diner to play the arrest footage. The Outlaws receive the message about Monstar being taken to jail and decide to stop the Silverhawks so that Monstar pays them. However, they should know there is no such luck in getting paid by Monstar. As they attack Seymour's cab, they almost rip its roof off, turning it into a shabby convertible. A little fun fact: Megazone 23 Part 2 featured a Silverhawks pinball game as a mythology gag since AIC worked on both series, but it's no game when Hotwing goes to put the Outlaws out of commission while a desperate Monstar shoves Quicksilver and lounges at the steering wheel. Quicksilver is thrown off the space hack as Monstar steers it into the light year limit. However, Hotwing returns and the two Silverhawks stop Monstar from escaping. After Monstar is sent to jail, Seymour shares his worry that he is now on the hit list of Monstar, which is absolutely correct, as now Monstar wants his revenge on the innocent space taxi driver. Monstar also waits for revenge on the Silverhawks, who return to Hawk Haven and are appreciated for their work. Sneak Attack Part 2. The second part of the story starts with Monstar remembering how he got arrested and plotting revenge against Quicksilver, Hotwing, Seymour, and Zeke. In Hawk Haven, Steelwill shows Copper Kid his newly invented weapons, Screamer and Steamer, when Stargazer calls them. The commander sends them to scan Penal Planet as the mob will try to bust out Monstar. Likely enough, Hardware has created a power pack to store Moonstar's light so he can take it to Monstar. Yes Man helps with the transformation process as Hardware harnesses the light. Hardware then takes Molecular, who changes into Quicksilver, to enter the Penal Planet. Molecular presents a limbo Oscar-worthy performance as he communicates with Warden Lockup and places Hardware inside with the power pack. Hardware opens his cell and delivers the power pack to Monstar to help him transform and break out of the jail. However, Monstar refuses to head back to Brimstar and orders the mob to send Skyrunner to him. Hawk Haven also receives the news of the breakout and sends Mayday to track Monstar, who has now attacked the space hack. Seymour can be seen wearing an Uncle Sam-like costume, whereas Zeke also seems to have done some shopping for himself. As Skyrunner strangles the duo, Monstar attacks Hawk Haven. Steelwill and Copper Kid heads out to stop them, and Kid uses the Screamer against Monstar. It fails to do any damage, and Steelwill has to use the steamer gun. It turns Monstar's armor too hot, forcing him to retreat. Seymour and Zeke also fall from space directly into Hawk Haven's control room. Although Monstar has escaped, everyone is safe, and another Zeke and Seymour banter ends the story on a fun note. Moonstar. The episode starts with Stargazer informing Flashback that Monstar has gained new superpowers from a chunk of stone from the Moonstar. Tallyhawk's report shows that an explosion on Moonstar caused rocks to fall on asteroids, and Cyclops found one that emits red light. He takes it to Cine Star Diner to show it to his outlaw friends, but Pokerface snatches the stone from him and tests it. Realizing it's a Moonstar rock, Pokerface takes it to Monstar to sell. It appears Pokerface's betrayal is forgotten and forgiven. Monstar takes the stone and transforms it, developing new and stronger powers. As the video ends, Stargazer asks Flashback to return in time and prevent Monstar from getting the stone. Flashback takes Backlash and travels to Cine Star Diner to the moment when Cyclops enters with the rock. Although Flashback manages to get the rock, the attack from Space Bandit's group and Pokerface freezes Flashback and Backlash in a glass spade. Yes Man then takes Pokerface and the captives back to Brimstar, where history repeats itself as Monstar again gets the power. Monstar immediately attacks Flashback, but thanks to Backlash's distraction, the two escape into the chute, and as Pokerface randomly shoots at them, they get deep-spaced. Flashback immediately calls Hawk Haven for pickup, and Stargazer sends Copper Kid to fly the Mirage. However, Monstar is not discouraged as he now takes Skyrunner to attack Dolare. Lord Cash notices Monstar approaching and appoints Gotbucks to activate the force fields and security system. Monstar's newest set of powers helps him break through all the barriers and empty the lockers, while Lord Cash makes an emergency call to the Silverhawks. If you are not aware, it's a little-known fact that Silverhawks is now owned by Warner Brothers, since Lorimar Telepictures was purchased by Warner Brothers in 1989, so now you know where to look for if you are seeking to buy a set. Moving on, Flashback instructs Copper Kid to proceed with the hot seat as he follows to stop Monstar. Monstar shoots at Gotbucks as he tries to stop him, and Copper Kid makes a crash landing. However, the newly powered Monstar is invincible as he attacks Copper Kid and Backlash with the Light Star. Finding no way out, Flashback again time travels and returns to the moment before they entered Dolare. Flashback tells Kid he knows Monstar's moves and asks him to follow. This time, Flashback is able to hurt Skyrunner as it spurts out all the gold and forces Monstar to retreat. Copper Kid helps Gotbucks to get back, and Lord Cash is amazed at how the Silverhawks get Monstar every time.
You know your problem, Seymour. Your problem.
Diamond Stick Pin. Zeke's constant remark about Seymour's cab leads to a fallout between the two, and Seymour throws Zeke out of his cab. Hardware picks up Zeke, hoping to use him to get back at the Silverhawks. Hardware takes Zeke to Brimstar, and even Monstar instigates him to join the gang. Hardware presents Zeke with a brand new limo, asking him to use the car to give a ride to the mob when needed and use it for his business. Hardware also presents Zeke with a diamond stick pin, which is a remote-controlled bomb. Monstar and Hardware's plan is revealed, which is to blow up Silverhawks, who take a ride in Zeke's car. The opportunity comes soon as Stargazer suggests the Quicksilver and the Steel twins take a break and go sightseeing in Bedlama. However, the Mirage is not here, and Seymour is repairing his cab. Since Seymour almost knocked into Zeke's car, he is aware of Zeke's new business and informs the Silverhawks that Zeke can give them a ride. Adding Zeke and Seymour to the series has upgraded its tone of humour, although we must admit, Monstar and Hardware are also given some slick one-liners. In fact, Solar Opposites, an adult animated science fiction sitcom, have even parodied the Silverhawks as Silver Cops in an elaborate subplot. But in that story, everyone is corrupt. But enough of that, as Zeke gets ambushed by the Fence Outlaws. They take away the diamond pin, but their car malfunctions, and they land on the same asteroid where Seymour has been repairing his cab. Seymour takes the Outlaws to Fence, where they plan to sell the diamond, but Pokerface and Melodia notice it. A fight ensues, where the mob wins, and Melodia decides that gifting the diamond pin to Monstar can help them return to the good side of the Planet Master. Meanwhile, Zeke enters Hawk Haven for pickup, and Sky Shadow sends an image. But Hardware doesn't let Monstar blow up just yet, as the bomb is not powerful enough to blow up Hawk Haven. As Zeke leaves with the Silverhawks, Seymour enters Hawk Haven, but Zeke's remark drives him mad, and Seymour chases after him. Annoyed by the road rash in space, Quicksilver makes Zeke and Seymour stop at an asteroid, and once again, Hardware stops Monstar from blowing up as Quicksilver has got down to speak to Seymour. Ironically, the fun part is that none of them know that the diamond pin is now en route Brimstar, courtesy of Pokerface and Melodia. Meanwhile, Zeke and Seymour argue as Quicksilver tries to resolve the matter. He even gets accidentally kicked by Zeke, which forces the Steel Twins to come out of the limo. Pokerface and Melodia also reach Monstar's castle, but Yes Man won't let them go. They get past him and present the pin to Monstar just as he switches on the bomb. Although they throw the pin into the ground before it blasts, it sure gives a scare to Monstar and his mob. Monstar vouches to punish the one responsible for the fiasco. While Zeke and Seymour finally reconcile, Quicksilver reminds them they still have a trip to complete, and so ends this considerably amusing episode of the Silverhawks. Burnout. Zero, the memory thief, presents Monstar with a new scamming idea by which he plans to wipe out Professor Power's memory so that the mob can control the artificial sun and take money from the people of Limbo to use the sun's light. However, they decide to boil Hawk Haven first and end the Silverhawks. Zero lies to Professor Power that he needs help with one of his memory recording devices and flatters Professor Power by calling him a genius. When Professor Power lets him in, Zero steals his memory, increases the artificial sun's temperature to flaming hot and directs it towards Hawk Haven. Stargazer feels the heat and asks the Steel Twins to check on the air conditioning unit, but they find that the temperature is excessively high, jamming all doors in Hawk Haven. Realizing that the heat is due to the artificial sun, Stargazer calls Professor Power, but he doesn't answer as Zero is taking him to Brimstar. Stargazer then calls Hotwing for assistance, and Hotwings leaves his task of escorting a huge tanker filled with jewels outside Limbo. When Zero brings Professor Power to Limbo, everyone celebrates Hawk Haven burning up. Now, we know the title. Burnout is not about fatigue, but a literal metaphor. With Stargazer and the Steel Twins trapped in Hawk Haven, Hotwing takes the equalizer in a hyperdrive but feels Limbo becoming too warm. He finds Professor Power is missing, while Monstar gleefully calls Stargazer to claim ownership of the crime. Hotwing connects with Stargazer, who instructs him to bend the light and focus it on Brimstar. Hotwing uses his magical trick to do as instructed and saves Hawk Haven. He also needs to find Professor Power to return Limbo to normal temperature. Hotwing rides in Seymour's cab to reach Brimstar inconspicuously and rescues amnesiac Professor Power from the dungeons. In the meantime, Brimstar has heated up and Monstar sends Windhammer to create a storm and rain, but it doesn't work. Monstar threatens Zero, who doesn't have the expertise to bend the light. When Yes Man brings forth Hotwing and Professor Power, Monstar tries to strike a deal, and Hotwing suggests returning Professor Power's memory, and only then can they help save Brimstar. If you haven't noticed, Professor Power's blubhead has its lights out when he loses the memories, and it lights up when Zero returns the memories. Hotwing takes Professor Power back to the artificial sun and returns the temperature to normal. However, Professor Power has also learned to never trust the mob, especially flattery.
I'm welcome.
Battlecruiser. The Silverhawks have gained the upper hand in Limbo, and Monstar wants to preside over the Earth mob in Chicago. He instructs Hardware to create a battlecruiser for the journey and orders Melodia and Windhammer to take Sky Shadow to steal all the lasers from the Silverhawk vehicles for the firepower. Meanwhile, the Omega space station has blown up the main stabilizer, and Bluegrass must take a team to repair it. Bluegrass, the Steel Twins, Flashback and Hotwing leave on Mirage for a day's journey. While we assume the Mirage will be safe, the space racer's luck is not favourable as Copper Kid gets spotted by the mob while on patrol. The mob attacks the spacecraft, forcing Copper Kid to leave, and Melodia steals the laser gun fitted to Space Racer. Quicksilver receives a distress call from Kid and reaches the place a little too late. Melodia and Windhammer also attack Sprinthawk, forcing Quicksilver to stop mid-space. As they talk, Windhammer almost reveals Monstar's plan, but Melodia stops him. Quicksilver uses black powder for a vanishing act and hides beneath the zoomer. While thinking him to be gone, Windhammer steals important parts from the side of Sprinthawk's wing before they return to Brimstar. Oddly, the rogues did not tow the abandoned spacecraft, or steal the missiles from launch racks. Quicksilver overhears the plan, but Windhammer discovers him before he can report to Stargazer. Windhammer freezes Quicksilver in a block of ice, but foolishly, he and Hardware throw Quicksilver into the hot crater. The ice melts, and Quicksilver saves himself. He further sends Tallyhawk to spy on Monstar inside the castle. The battle cruiser is almost ready, and Monstar notices Tallyhawk. But as Hardware fails to stop Tallyhawk, the bird escapes and goes to Hawk Haven to report everything. Stargazer has lost all connection to Quicksilver and Copper Kid, so he warns General Rawlings of Earthbase about Monstar's plan. Rawlings sends a new graduate, Moonstriker, and contacts an old veteran, Condor. Upon reaching Limbo, Moonstriker shows off his laser marksmanship and self-propelled flight abilities, while Condor greets his old friend Stargazer, calling him Gaze. FYI, Condor has worked under Stargazer, while he and Monstar also know each other. Moonstriker subdues Windhammer and Hardware by tying them up and leaves with the battlecruiser. He sends a message to Monstar and switches off the video as Monstar goes for transformation. However, Condor is here to stop Monstar from chasing after the battlecruiser. Condor defeats Monstar even after taking heat, and the crisis is averted as Monstar's dream is shattered. Later, Moonstriker shows Stargazer that he has let the battlecruiser crash in the light year limit. With these two newest additions to the Silverhawks, Monstar's days can be considered numbered. Small world. Hardware has devised a new plan to move Automata from its position so that the mob can retool its products into weapons while placing the planet in the light year limit, which will make it beyond the Silverhawks' jurisdiction. Hardware has also created the Shrink-a-Later weapon that can shrink anything and bring it back to normal. Hardware uses Yes Man for the representation. In Hawk Haven, Stargazer calls for Hotwing since Automata is malfunctioning, and as Hotwing fixes the viewing system in Stargazer's office, they look for the problem. Monotone, the central computer, detects gas pipe leaks that can cause a massive explosion that will wipe out the whole galaxy. Hotwing rushes to resolve the situation and notices the mob. Melodia shrinks Space Racer and Automata as she starts playing pass the ball with Mumbo Jumbo while teasing Hotwing. Melodia takes Automata to Brimstar while Hotwing hijacks the zoomer from Mumbo Jumbo and reaches Brimstar. The mob refuses to listen to him and knocks him out unconscious. Hotwing also tries to reason with Monstar, but he doesn't believe him. With only 2 minutes left till the explosion, it's time for radical measures. Meanwhile, Stargazer has called the new recruits to join the mission, which is a refreshing change. Hotwing uses his psychic abilities to send a radio message to Hawk Haven, where he explains the whole situation, and Flashback offers to resolve the problem. He takes a magnifying glass and a pincer to reach Brimstar just as Hotwing finishes talking. Flashback repairs the damage, but he gets surrounded by Monstar's mob, who shrinks him. Flashback escapes and calls for help from Stargazer, who sends Condor and Moonstriker. Flashback also uses the magnifying glass to break the chains on Hotwing. Amazingly, this show is quite a tribute to the noir style. Right from Stargazer's old office to Monstar being a kingpin, the noir style is prominent, which becomes more pronounced with the addition of Condor's texts and attitudes. By the time Condor and Moonstriker arrive at Brimstar, Monstar has transformed and leaves with Hardware and Automata. While the other Silverhawks stop the likes of Buzzsaw and Melodia, Condor follows Monstar in the Equalizer. Condor uses his laser Talon gun to retrieve the Shrink-a-Later, turning Monstar and Hardware small. Next, he and the other Silverhawks in the machine restore Automata and Flashback to their original form.
All right, that's enough. Stop the fight!
Matchup. Monstar tells his boys Windhammer and Hardware to pull up their weight and rob an armoured space freighter carrying million limbo bucks to the National Treasury of Bedlama. Windhammer creates a tornado to suck up all the money bags from the freighter. The pilots complain to Condor, who rings up Stargazer with the news and gets the command to follow the perpetrators. Stargazer also sends Moonstriker to aid Condor in the mission. Windhammer uses the tornado to fill up the zoomer with money bags, and as they fly towards Brimstar, they notice the Silverhawks in hot pursuit. Windhammer creates another tornado, and the cocky Moonstriker gets blown away when he tries to defuse it. Windy also creates an ice storm to freeze Condor. However, Moonstriker gets back and attacks the zoomer, and Windhammer's attacks break the ice crystal, enabling Condor and Moonstriker to launch a double attack. Hardware uses the Prowler to escape, while the Silverhawks arrest Windy and take him to Penal Planet. Moonstriker leaves to report back, and Condor remains to look through the criminal database. Windy is put in the same cell as Bounty Hunter and plans a breakout involving a boxing match between Bounty Hunter and Smiley. Windhammer proposes the idea of the boxing match to Warden Lockup, calling him a sports fan. Here is an interesting tidbit about the Warden. He was shown betting during Monstar's Great Meteor Race, so he could be a real gambling fan and find the match an opportunity to make some extra bucks. During the match between Bounty Hunter and Smiley, Warden Lockup keeps the robot in automatic mode, but Windhammer steals the remote. He uses Smiley to beat up Bounty Hunter, double-crossing him and distracting the guards. The sound of the alarms alerts Condor, and he tries his best to catch Windhammer, who finds his tuning fork and escapes. The Warden shares his guilt, but Condor points out that even prisoners need recreation. Well, at least they still got Smiley, and the Limbo Bucks are where they should be.
A real nice ride.
Stargazer's refit. The scene opens on Brimstar, with Monstar planning to use meltdown discs to kill Stargazer. He orders Molecular to be invisible and carry the meltdown discs to kill Stargazer. As the main Silverhawks leave for a mission, only Moonstriker is in Hawk Haven with Stargazer. However, Stargazer takes Seymour's cab to Bedlama when the can gets attacked by Molecular. The space hack almost melts down, and Stargazer is badly injured. Thankfully, Moonstriker arrives to save them and notices Molecular. This scene has an error, as Stargazer's hat can still be seen on the rack, although he was wearing it when he boarded the cab. Molecular blinds Moonstriker with gas and escapes, while the Silverhawk takes Stargazer to a hospital in Bedlama. Sometime later, Moonstriker returns with Stargazer and informs him that Condor, as a bodyguard, is appointed to escort Stargazer to Earth for a refitting, and they will travel by a freighter. Yes Man further informs Monstar about Stargazer's flight and that Molecular would be posing as the captain of the freighter. The grumpy old Stargazer continues to bicker with Condor as they travel to Earth. Molecular gas them and then throw them out of the ship just before the freighter arrives on Earth. Condor saves Stargazer from falling to death and takes him to a hospital where Nurse Mavis asks Condor to leave. Molecular again changes to Professor Gemakine and repairs Stargazer's hand, secretly placing a ticking meltdown disc inside. When Stargazer comes around, it is revealed that he and Mavis are previously acquainted. Well, at least someone has a girlfriend here. Mavis and Condor are appointed to look after Stargazer during his flight back, but Stargazer takes the luxury liner and Condor is left behind while Molecular is again on board to ensure the end of Stargazer. However, the luxury liner has a stoppage at Starship Casino, which spells trouble for both groups. It's outside the Silverhawks' jurisdiction, while Molecular reports that Stargazer will reach the casino at exactly 12 when the timer goes off. As Condor alerts Moonstriker, he also overhears the mob conversation. Similarly, Monstar warns Pokerface, who employs Mumbo Jumbo to throw Stargazer out. Mavis gets afraid of the monster charging, and Stargazer heroically runs with Mavis. Now, isn't that romantic? But it's the least of it, as Pokerface, in utter desperation, discloses the truth, but Stargazer refuses to believe him. Mavis insists on finding out and notices the disc, but there's no time, so our hero jumps off the building to save everyone. However, Moonstriker catches him and explains that the timer is set based on Earth time, while in Limbo, there are still 4 hours left till detonation. If you are confused about the timing, you can assume that Limbo is a small galaxy with the same time for all planetary bodies based on when the artificial sun is on. The episode ends on a happy note, with the commander back on his chair and even cracking a few jokes, which is a big change from his grumpy behaviour. The Invisible Destroyer. As usual, Hardware has come up with a new plan to scam people for money. He has developed a laser satellite that will be launched to threaten Bedlama and make the citizens follow their orders. Hardware has also ensured that the satellite is invisible in the light of the artificial sun. On the other hand, Copper Kid has installed a hyper booster into the hot seat and takes it for a spin along with Mayday. Stargazer is annoyed that only a few Silverhawks are at Hawk Haven and orders Moonstriker to call back Copper Kid. However, the Kid is near Brimstar and gets noticed by Monstar before the launch. He sends Sky Shadow to attack and capture Copper Kid. The Kid sends distress signals but is brought inside the fortress by Sky Shadow. Hardware and Monstar put Kid inside the satellite and again prepared for launch. One of the things that has been quite inconsistent is Sky Shadow's size in the show. While battling with Mayday, it has been a normal Fighting Hawk size, while when it carries Copper Kid, it is larger. Flashback and Moonstriker head towards Brimstar and notice Mayday. Monstar also notices the Silverhawks, but doesn't want to waste time as sunlight is receding. They launch the missile, which goes past the Silverhawks. The Silverhawks realize that the distress signal is coming from the satellite and contact Copper Kid, who shares information about the satellite. Hardware also sends sunlight, which makes the satellite invisible. Flashback realizes the trick and takes Moonstriker to meet Professor Power, who explains that sunlight makes the satellite invisible. Professor Power changed the sunlight form to make the satellite visible. The Silverhawks plan to stop the satellite before entering Bedlama's orbit. Monstar becomes furious with Hardware and transforms so that he can go and stop the Silverhawks himself. The Silverhawks try their trained maneuvers to break open a part of the satellite's shell and rescue Copper Kid, but Monstar also arrives to take on them. As Copper Kid and Flashback stay back to fight Monstar, Moonstriker propels forward to stop the satellite. Copper Kid uses his razor discs to create a magnetic shield that backfires Monstar's laser attacks, sending him and Skyrunner deep into space. Moonstriker also uses his expert marksman skills to fuse the circuits of the satellite, making it blow up before entering orbit. Stargazer is still upset with Kid for his rebellious act, but let's not forget that it's because Kid breaks into Brimstar that Bedlama is saved, and Monstar's plan is thwarted once again. The harder they fall. With so many new recruits for the Silverhawks, the mob are quickly getting outnumbered, and Monstar has a new plan to overcome this problem. He plans to use a larger size Sky Shadow to tow the penal planet near Brimstar to turn all the prisoners into the mob. Before that, he must test the Sky Shadow's ability to tow and send Hardware with Sky Shadow to tow a large freighter. The attack on the freighter caused the crew to abandon the ship and ride in Seymour's cab to reach Hawkhaven. As Stargazer learns about the event, he orders the Steel Twins to make a giant-sized Tallyhawk that can take on Sky Shadow. Meanwhile, Hardware takes Time Stopper and the Sky Shadow to pull the penal planet. Time Stopper attaches the rope to the penal planet, and as it starts to move, a robot guard and Warden Lockup become aware. The robot guard shoots at Sky Shadow and unicycles on the rope like a circus trick, but Hardware makes the robot guard fall. Although we are almost reaching the show's end, it's always baffling to see gravity work in space in limbo. The Warden informs Stargazer about the events, and the Silverhawks have a 10,000-pound solid steel Tallyhawk ready for action. The original Tallyhawk gets inside the giant robot bird to be its brain, while Flashback and Hotwing sit in the controls as they head for the attack. Despite being a trendsetter in many terms, from 1997 to 2000, the show's rerun was aired on Cartoon Network late at night or early in the morning, but one must agree, the show has wisely alternated regular cop action with sci-fi storytelling. The giant Tallyhawk cuts through the rope, releasing the penal planet and the Sky Shadow attacks back. Tallyhawk returns the favour, and as the two face head-on, Sky Shadow grabs hold of Flashback. The Silverhawk hits the Sky Shadow's eyes with a laser and gets free, but Time Stopper goes after him. However, Flashback reverses time before Time Stopper can freeze time. Monstar watches the fight and takes to the transformation chamber. Meanwhile, Hotwing uses some magic to tow the penal planet back to its place, which is once again interrupted by Monstar. Monstar's laser attack knocks out Hotwing, while Condor and Moonstriker appear. Monstar is able to defeat Condor by sending his talons to bind the Silverhawk. The Skyrunner also has a laser fight with the Tallyhawk, and the attack knocks out Flashback. Moonstriker gets caught by the squid and thrown far away, which means it's not looking good for the Silverhawks. Flashback wakes up in time and releases the real Tallyhawk, who breaks Monstar's laser lance and subdues Monstar. The episode ends with the penal planet returning to its original place and Tallyhawk being the hero.
Scatter!
Uncle Rattler. In this episode, we see Melodia and Buzzsaw aiming to attack the Silverhawks' payroll when they are suddenly attacked by a yellow gas. As the payroll delivery gets delayed, Stargazer worries, and Tallyhawks brings a report about the payroll freighter and the mob getting frozen. Condor recognizes the yellow smoke and identifies the culprit as the notorious snake-like criminal Rattler. Condor has been chasing Rattler on Earth for more than 300 years, and Rattler's yellow smoke venom can paralyze anybody. Melodia also brings news to Monstar about being robbed by a serpentine creature, and Monstar orders her to find the criminal and assemble the mob for retaliation. Yes Man also realizes it's his uncle Rattler. In Cine Star Diner, Hardware tries to sell an invisibility phaser to Space Bandit's crew and demonstrates it on bartender Harry, but Rattler knocks them out and steals the phaser. Yes Man arrives and greets his uncle, asking him to leave, but Rattler insists on defeating Monstar. Yes Man leaves first so that he can deactivate the security alarms. After they leave, Silverhawks, Condor and Moonstriker arrive to ask about Rattler. The scene debuts Moonstriker's Fighting Hawk tailspin, which would be made into a weapon bird accessory for Kenner's toys. In the show, Condor is the only Silverhawk with no personal Fighting Hawk. However, the Kenner toy line Condor's Jetstream rocket pack is called a weapon bird. In Brimstar, Monstar looks for Yes Man, who arrives just in time not to get discovered but lies through his teeth when he says that the transformation machine is out of order. Back in space, Rattler damages one of Condor's wings and forces Moonstriker and Tailspin to save the veteran. Flashback repairs Condor's wing, which takes Moonstriker back to catch the criminal. If Monstar is Stargazer's arch nemesis, the same can be said for Condor and Rattler. Speaking of Monstar, he threatens Yes Man to work on the transformation machine and assist Monstar with the transformation. As Rattler reaches Brimstar, he calls out to Monstar, who comes out of his fortress to fight. The situation gets more complicated as Yes Man joins in to save his uncle, while the Silverhawks also appear to arrest Rattler. Monstar uses his light star to paralyze Rattler, allowing the Silverhawks to arrest them. But Yes Man begs and pleads with Monstar to stop the Silverhawks. Monstar shoves him away and removes the spell from Rattler, but the Silverhawks still win and take Rattler to the penal planet. As Yes Man cries for his uncle, Monstar reminds him that the mob is the only family he has. Zeke's power. Hotwing is showing weakness and dwindling powers since he needs to be recharged by a magical orb every 14 years. The space hack encounters the orb in their way, and the orb asks them to take him to Hotwing. Zeke lies that he is Hotwing and is wearing a disguise to accept the magical powers. The orb grants the powers and returns to Earth, saying if Zeke is lying, the orb will destroy him. Zeke uses his newfound magical powers to take Seymour's voice so that he cannot relay the news to the Silverhawks. Zeke then leaves for Starship Casino to make some extra cash. Meanwhile, Hotwing weakens with time without the magic, and Stargazer rallies the Silverhawks to find the orb. In Starship Casino, Zeke uses his money on the slot machines to earn jackpot gold, but gets attacked by Pokerface. While Bluegrass and others fail to find the orb, Copper Kid comes across Seymour, and both use whistles to communicate with each other. In Hawk Haven, the Steel Twins work together to save Hotwing from a tragic end. The fight in Starship Casino continues as Zeke uses his magical powers to attack back. A desperate Pokerface calls Monstar for help, who refuses to believe that Zeke is trashing the place and laughs. Pokerface convinces Monstar by telling him that Zeke is stealing Monstar's money. Monstar transforms to finally take part in the action. This is probably the second last time we see the transformation, as it's the penultimate episode, but you can look for an extraordinarily spectacular transformation scene in the reboot of Silverhawks. Yes, you have heard right. It was announced by Dynamite Entertainment at the New York Comic-Con that the Silverhawks will return with an all-new ongoing series in 2025. However, the Nacelleverse reboot of the show has already been in development since 2021. Getting back to where we were, Seymour and Copper Kid tell Stargazer about Zeke, who sends Condor and Moonstriker to get Zeke to Hawk Haven. Monstar also breaks into Starship Casino and confronts Zeke. Although Zeke launches the first attack, Monstar recovers and paralyzes him with the Light Star. The Silverhawks arrives, binds Monstar, and takes him back to Hawk Haven. As Flashback destroys the Light Star spell, Stargazer asks Zeke to return Hotwing's power. Zeke agrees, and Hotwing goes back to normal. Although it's wrong, Stargazer forgives Zeke, but punishes him with probation, community service, and confinement to Seymour's cab. As Zeke calls that the ultimate punishment, Seymour pleads to get his voice back, making Zeke scared. Airshow. We have now come to the end of our review. The last episode shows the OG Silverhawks team running a practice round of the airshow before the final program, which is the celebration of Bedlama's Independence Day. The new recruits are also prepared, and Stargazer is in a positive mood. However, there is one damper, and that's Monstar planning a sabotage. Monstar tells Yes Man that he will send Hardware and Molecular to Hawkhaven to replace the Mirage. As planned, Hardware uses a buzz spoiler to silence the alarm as they enter Hawkhaven with the help of the Prowler. Molecular turns himself to Steel Will to drop the Mirage into space. Once again, there is some unexplained gravitational action. Molecular then transforms himself into the Mirage. The next day, all the Silverhawks, including Commander Stargazer, leave Hawkhaven in their individual spacecraft. Similarly, Monstar transforms into his upgraded version and leaves with the entire mob. This surely sets the ground for one last massive showdown between the rogues and the cops. It starts with Molecular as Mirage taking the Silverhawks out of Bedlama, leaving 5 Silverhawks and Stargazer to be faced by Mob. Bluegrass confesses that the Mirage is completely acting on its own as it aims for a place beyond Limbo. Monstar and his mob enter Bedlama and start attacking the Silverhawks one by one. Melodia shoots at Copper Kid, Windhammer targets Moonstriker, Pokerface, and Mumbo Jumbo attacks Condor, while Hardware and Buzzsaw go after Hotwing. It's no surprise that Monstar faces off with Stargazer. Meanwhile, Molecular enters the rocky light-year limit, and Quicksilver calls for Tallyhawk. As the bird scratches the hood of the Mirage, Molecular reveals himself, turns into a missile and runs away. The wingless Bluegrass almost drifts into space as Quicksilver, Steelheart, Steel Will, and Flashback save him. As they wait on an asteroid, they notice the space hack and take the ride back to Bedlama. Seymour refuses to be part of the ambush as he might damage the vehicle, but Zeke insists on being the hero. Upon entering the atmosphere, the Steel Twins immediately get rid of Hardware and Buzzsaw. Melodia injures Flashback, but Bluegrass and Zeke take her down. Monstar also gets surrounded by Quicksilver and Stargazer as their squeeze action knocks him off Skyrunner. The mob boss leaves once again, promising to get back at the Silverhawks. They assemble at Hawkhaven later and show disappointment at failing to do an impressive air show. Nonetheless, they gave the audience a heck of a show and defeated the mob. Marvelous verdict. It is one of those feel-good shows from childhood that entertained us with simple, linear storytelling and only a handful of characters. Although the show often leaned towards being monotonous, it had its moments of brilliance with outstanding animation and an exceptional soundtrack. However, watching through the series made us wonder if the show deserved more hype or if it was good just the way it was. What are your views on the matter? Do share with us in the comment section.